The meeting is now called to order. It is January 22nd, 2025, and the time is 6:35 p.m. Our mission is to provide a safe and caring climate and culture in which we engage, inspire, educate, prepare, and empower all learners in partnership with their surrounding community to be successful in today's and tomorrow's society. Bruce, can you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Okay, I can try to remember that and do that next time if that's what we.
Okay, thank you. And then when you're ready, can you please call roll?
Yes, Madam Chair, the following board members are present at the District Administration Office. That includes Scott Andresen.
Here.
Natalie Copeland.
Here.
Zach Dorholt. Diana Fenton.
Here.
Shannon Haas.
Here.
Bruce Henches, here, and Heather Weems.
Here.
Following cabinet members and staff are present here at the District Administration Office. Superintendent, Dr. Lori Putnam, Minnesota Superintendent of the Year. Assistant Superintendent of Secondary Education, Dr. Jason Harris. Assistant Superintendent of E5 Learning, Nikki Hansen. Assistant Superintendent of E12 Educational Services, Shannon Avenson. Executive Director of Community Education, Adam Holm. Executive Director of Finance and Business, Amy Skellerud. Executive Director of Operations, Joel Heitkamp. Executive Director of Research, Enrollment, and Assessments, Donna Roper. Executive Director of Special Projects, Gary Ganji. Director of Community Engagement and Communications, Tammy DeLand. Media technicians, Paul Novak and Gordy Scott. And the custodian on site, Austin Goodwater.
Thank you. And then I'm looking for a motion to approve tonight's Board of Education meeting agenda.
So move.
I have a motion by Scott, second by Natalie. Bruce, can you call vote again?
Heather Weems. Bruce Henches, yes. Shannon Haas.
Yes.
Diana Fenton.
Yes.
Zach Dorholt. Natalie Copeland.
Yes.
Scott Andresen.
Yes.
Thank you. Then we have the consent agenda. The consent agenda consists of non-controversial items that a board adopts routinely without debate. Any single member may remove an item from the consent agenda by requesting removal at the time the consent agenda is moved for adoption. On tonight's consent agenda, item A, approval of minutes from December 4, 2024, and December 17, 2024, and December 18, 2024. Item B, approval of bills and other financial transactions in the grand total amount of $5,995,761.08. Item C, approval of personnel staff changes. Item D, acceptance of grant awards and donations. Item E, quarterly expenditures for board members. Item F, Apollo Theater improvements change orders totaling $31,323.47. Item G, call for bids, North Junior High LTFM improvements. Item H, call for bids, South Junior High LTMF improvements. Item I, call for bids, Apollo parking lot improvements. And item J, joint purchasing contract award, South Locker replacement. At this time, does any board member wish for an item to be removed from the consent agenda? Natalie?
Madam Chair, if I could please remove D, acceptance of grant awards and donations.
Okay. Then I'm looking for a motion to approve items A through J except for item D.
So move.
I have a motion by Scott and a second by Natalie. Bruce, can you please call vote?
Scott Andresen.
Yes.
Natalie Copeland.
Yes.
Zach Dorholt. Diana Fenton.
Yes.
Shannon Haas.
Yes.
Bruce Henches, yes. Heather Weems.
Yes.
Okay, are you looking to recuse yourself from item D? Okay, thank you. So looking for a motion to approve item D.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Bruce, a second by Scott. So Bruce, can you call vote and, except for Natalie?
Heather Weems.
Yes.
Bruce Henches, yes. Shannon Haas.
Yes.
Diana Fenton.
Yes.
Zach Dorholt. And Scott Andresen.
Yes.
All right, thank you. On to information items tonight. We have two. First up, we have the Comprehensive Arts Planning Program presented tonight by Laura Stepner, Director of Elementary Education.
Good evening, Chair Haas, Superintendent Putnam, and members of the school board. I am pleased to be here tonight to share our District 742 Art Strategic Plan. This was a plan that was created in partnership with the Purpage Center, and so we are very excited to share the work. I'm also excited to welcome Maren Wagner here with us tonight. Maren was the co-chair of this work, and she will also be co-presenting with me tonight. Maren was integral in the planning process and has done a great amount of work to lift this initiative off the ground. I also wanted to acknowledge Mariah Chamberlain, who is our other co-chair and couldn't be with us tonight due to some flight delays that were out of her control. But I just want to acknowledge Maren's hard work because Maren also served as a co-chair for this project. So with that, we are excited to share with you our strategic arts plan that was created through the Comprehensive Arts Planning Program with the Purpose Center.
So we wanted to start with this quote that just kind of encompasses what I live every day as an art teacher, and then just like what the kids experience when they come into spaces of art, that the arts must be at the heart of every child's learning experience if they are to have a chance to dream and create, to have beliefs, to carry a sense of cultural identity. And that just comes out, that beautifully sums up everything that comes out within the arts. So now just a little bit about the planning that we've been doing over the past year and a half, and what the purpose intended, or what the purpose is. But the grant provides assistance to schools who apply and have need for development within their arts community. And then within that, Mariah and I have been receiving technical assistance with that, and the Purpose has been coming up here to work with us in our planning, and Mariah and I have had some leadership development, and then we get the grant money within that too. And then it's been, so we are in the middle of year 2 of a 3-year process, where year 1 was dedicated to analyzing our arts program amongst a whole group of people in the community. And then now, after analyzing and planning, we are in the process of implementation. And then next year, we should be in our full implementation with what the strategic plan outlines. And then these were who were on the members of the team. So it was Mariah and myself were the co-chairs. And then we've had community partners from the Paramount, from CSBSJU, from SCSU. There's a variety of both music teachers and art teachers from the district, and Laura in district leadership.
And we've also had some parents as part of it as well. So this process, I will say, being part of it was very invigorating. It was well led. It was great to have the facilitation of Purpose to help guide us. We had Shannon was part of it as well. We had really big, thoughtful, robust conversations about arts programming. This process gave us a chance to dream really big. And then eventually you have to narrow it down. We had to identify our strategic directions, what we wanted to put our effort and energy into as part of the strategic plan. Our team identified 3 strategic directions: connection to community, intentional and thoughtful engagement in diversity, equity, and access to the arts, and supplying support to staff. And we're just going to share a little bit about each of those and what they entail as part of our strategic arts plan. So first is connection to the community. In this strategic direction, we're really thinking about how having task forces that involve community engagement is critical. We are really fortunate in the St. Cloud area to have so much access to arts programming. We're very unique in the ways that we can leverage our community partners, but we don't always get in the same places and spaces and dream and think about how to leverage both of the resources within the school district and within the community. And so one of the pieces that we've identified as an action step is to have some task forces for art and music that really bring together the district and the community. We also talked a lot about how highlighting the arts to our parent groups is something that's important for our community. And so we've talked a lot about how we can leverage the parent group that meet here in our district, and we can use those opportunities where parents are coming together to highlight arts and also to get feedback from parents. We also really are interested in engaging students in the community and in this work. So how can students, especially our secondary students, be involved in things like potentially grant writing, potentially coming up with project-based learning or community arts programs and initiatives that are really important and meaningful for them as students, and bringing them into that community work. We were also fortunate to receive the Culturally Responsive Arts Education Grant, which is funding that can help support this work. And so one of the things that is really exciting about the Purpose is that you get the financial support for planning, but not necessarily the financial support for implementation. Mariah worked really hard to secure this additional funding stream, so this now will allow us to have funding sources to help with things like pulling together task forces, maybe being able to provide compensation for teachers to attend parent meetings to highlight student performances at those meetings. The second strategic direction, which is the intentional and thoughtful engagement in diversity, equity, and access, really focuses on a number of things. One is increasing access to arts programs, and this is within school and outside of school. We know that there are many opportunities for students here in District 742, and we also know that there are students who maybe aren't aware of some of the great offerings, and so part of our strategic plan is to ensure that we're really increasing those opportunities for access, that if there are great programs out there that kids would thrive in, that we're working as a district to help make those connections for students and also really connect students to the programs we have here in the district. We also talk a lot in our district about college and career readiness and really just highlighting that the arts is a great career option. There are scholarships, there are benefits. It is a pathway to secondary success, and really wanting to make sure that the arts are seen as part of that conversation and highlighting that when we talk about post-secondary options for students. And then embracing diversity and serving all students. Many of you have had the opportunity to hear from our Walker West partnership at least a couple of times, and the Walker West partnership is one way that we can really leverage musicians that help to bring in culture and the culture that our students are familiar with to the classrooms. These artists are working with our elementary students, really targeting 5th grade, to ensure that students have exciting, culturally engaging, fun, diverse programming in the elementary school to help make that connection and develop that love of arts that can hopefully transition into secondary. And then the third is supplying support for staff. So we have Natalie here, who's a former arts teacher. Being an arts teacher is a big job, right? You're often teaching a lot of things. You're teaching many different things. You might be navigating more than one school system and making those connections. And so we've been really excited to think as part of this planning process about how we can really support and provide meaningful support for our art teachers and music teachers as well. So thinking about how we assign mentors, how we are able to provide content-specific mentors for our arts teachers, really working to develop curriculum that's cohesive and accessible for teachers so that they're coming in with a really great plan for how they're going to provide that instruction. The Walker West Partnership has also helped with professional development as well. And so not only are they working with our students in the music programs in our schools, they're also working with staff, coming in and demonstrating some of the instructional techniques, providing opportunities for staff to plan with them, to think about different ways to engage students in music specifically. And then building culture and climate into arts programming, and that's really that culture and climate for staff. So prioritizing time for staff to work together on professional development days, ensuring that staff have an opportunity to give input on the professional development that's important to them, building the connections. Often these folks are singletons at their school. They're not on a team of science teachers or a team of math teachers. They're on a team of music teachers or art teachers, but often those are very specialized. So really thinking about how we can provide that strong support for our staff members that are in these programs. Right now, as Maren said, we are in year 2, and so I just wanted to share with you what the prioritized actions are, because remember, we're moving towards implementation in year 2, and in year 3, it's that full implementation. And so this year, the work that we've identified to be highlighted this year is planning and facilitating community arts organizations and programs into schools. Really looking, Mariah's been working hard to think about how we can leverage the strengths and talents of our community and have those community partnerships within schools. We've loved the Walker West Partnership, and we're excited to think about how we might be able to replicate something like that with local artists from the St. Cloud community. As we start to work with family groups, we want to be able to collect information from these family groups and then analyze the data. We've also talked about the task forces that we want to form, and making sure that those groups are able to get input from family groups and organizations. There are also lots of organizations that focus on arts in our community as well. Boys and Girls Club is one that stands out. There are many, but those groups have data that maybe we don't have about student interests, student strengths, student needs. We want to make sure that we've identified representation for parent engagement meetings, and we've made the connections between our equity department and our music teachers to start to plan how we can bring in those music components into the parent meetings. We want to make sure we've got a set of questions that we're asking families to really get their input when we have those opportunities to be at family meetings. Highlighting and advertising student work. You've seen student artwork at the DAO. That's been one of our pieces that wasn't necessarily part of this planning, but it's been a great opportunity for students to highlight their work, and we want to continue to think about where are the places and the spaces in our community where we can highlight the art of our students. Providing input to admin on scheduling. So we want to think creatively about how to get more access to arts. And then also, as you know, in a big complicated system, there are always trade-offs when it comes to things like scheduling. And so just having an opportunity for the art teachers to really define some of the challenges and creative ideas they have for scheduling more access to arts and be able to work with admin on whether or not those are viable solutions. So at this point, it's really just generating ideas, kind of that what if we could offer something unique or different? What if we could use this time a little differently to increase access to arts? That, of course, will take lots of planning because the domino effect that happens with schedules. But we're excited to start brainstorming and bring those ideas forward. And then continuing the dedicated time for professional learning. So our staff had an opportunity in October, and we'll have another opportunity in March to be together as art and music teams to be able to work on that professional development. So that is what we had for you tonight to highlight the strategic plan, and Maren and I are happy to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, does anybody have any questions or comment, Heather?
Thank you. I was not blessed with much for art skills either, performance or visual. That said, and I go back, it was a challenge of growing up because I have 5 brothers, all who tended to have, I'm sharing way too much, but we had art shows when I was little, and my older brother sold everything for 25 cents and I got a penny, so it's disturbing. You talked a little bit about it, and within this program, with task forces asking some of the tough questions, and I'm sure some of it will come out. So my question, I have three. What is the biggest barrier to arts engagement? That might be something that you're looking at and partnering with some of your community partners as well. Performing arts versus performing arts tend to be visible, theater, music, those sorts of things. Can you talk a little bit about visual arts opportunities, particularly at the secondary level?
Okay. Did you have three? Or were
Oh,
there
and
two?
the third one
Okay.
is, what do you see as patterns in growth and retention in arts participation, particularly as you go through the P through? I mean, obviously, if you have little kids, you know they draw and are engaged every day almost in some sort of art, and then typically you see that fall as they age through. So what sorts of growth and retention do you see in arts participation over the course of students' careers?
Do you want to take any or you want me to start?
Yeah, I can start with that last one. So particularly focusing on how to retain engagement within the arts from, like, being an art teacher, I know that I have essentially one shot to connect with my students and make sure that they love coming to the space. Because if I am critical of them, and I bet every single person can think of one thing that their art teacher or their teacher said to them where it was like, yeah, and so we know that kids wanting to be in spaces of art means that we need to create teachers who then will support them. So that's a huge piece of the professional learning. And especially, like, as an art teacher, I am lucky enough to have a co-teacher in the middle school at Kennedy. So I'm not an island, but almost every other person is. And that can be very hard to try and build up your art community and whatnot. And so then that's where things start to fall apart, is when people are isolated too. So that's a huge piece of the professional learning opportunities, because when we have art teachers who love their jobs and are connected and have professional learning opportunities, then they go into the space and they create a space where students want to be. And then, that carries on.
And then I can take the first two. So I think there's a couple barriers that I've noticed through my work with the arts programming. One is those transition years. So when we go from elementary to middle, it's a little bit vague in the minds of fifth graders. Like, what does it mean to be in band and orchestra? We've done some real intentional work with bringing our band and orchestra and our choirs out. The programming with Walker West, we've really been trying to highlight, and these are the types of activities you would do if you joined band next year. And then by working with Walker West to work with the teachers, they're also incorporating some of those strategies. So last year we were excited to report that we were seeing more students expressing interest in band and orchestra, but that transition year also, when you're a fifth grader, a lot of it is, what are my friends doing? Where are they going to be? And so I think a barrier is just the typical brain of a middle schooler, which is a complicated little thing that we all need to navigate. And so we're really trying to find that, like Maren said, speak to that joy early, help kids by being deliberate and explicit that we are doing the things that they can continue if they have that joy and that love. Mariah and I just met last week to build in a protocol as well. One of the things that we noticed is that when the middle school staff come to talk to students, they talk to the homeroom teacher. So that makes sense, right? They go into the fifth grade classrooms, they talk about the options, and then the kids sign up, and that goes to the middle school. But the music teachers don't get an opportunity, or we haven't built that in for them to see what did kids sign up for, so that they could say, oh, Natalie, you didn't sign up for choir? Like, you would be great at choir. Tell me more, so that the music teachers can follow up on some of those strengths that we see. So sometimes it's just those little solutions that could make a big deal, because we all know the power of the conversation. So I think that's one barrier. The second, I think, is once we get into high school, and that's why we spoke to part of our strategic plan being highlighting those post-secondary education opportunities and the scholarships and the ways that arts can serve as a viable career. And so students often get into the high school and they feel that forced choice. Do I take this science class? Do I take this career focused class that's really interesting to me? art is a year-long opportunity in most cases, so thinking about especially musics, like that takes up space in the schedule. And so that becomes a barrier as well, and we know we can do a better job with highlighting for our students the benefits that an arts experience in high school and in secondary can really provide for them. So as we work with this purpose work and the strategic plan, that will be part of our action steps. Tell me your second question again. Oh, visual arts, right? So we do have a couple of opportunities. We do the Vera Russell show at St. Cloud State. We do have an art lead, a visual arts lead, and she is brilliant and committed to highlighting our program. She was instrumental in getting the artwork in the DAO, getting it up at SCSU, and is continuing to meet with the art teachers to say, where else can we highlight? We've had some initial conversations with Paramount. How can we create art that could be displayed in Paramount, especially if they're highlighting something that our students will be attending. So we've had opportunities where students have attended a musical or theater performance. How might we have art students be creating art that fits with that theme? That isn't something that we've brought to fruition yet, but really looking for those community connections. We've had some great success that we can build on, some good partnerships. And so those are the two that come to mind right now. You're welcome.
Well, I can't sing, and I can't play an instrument. Don't do a very good job of painting. What's left?
I think that the arts is a place for everyone. And I think that what we focus on, and I think Maren spoke to it so eloquently, is the joy. Art isn't going to be 2 + 2 = 4. Art isn't going to be, how do I decode this multi-syllable word? You know, art really is feeling, it's emotion, it's heart, it's creativity, it's students' opportunity to express themselves. And so if we can help create a narrative for students that interrupts that idea that I can't sing, I can't paint, I can't act, that's really our work, is to not let students think that. We wouldn't let students think, I can't, I just can't do any of these subjects. We would really say, well, we can, we keep working on it, we have a growth mindset. And so I would say that our teachers, our teaching staff is so committed to ensuring that all of our students feel at home and feel like they have a place within the arts. And what we need to do as adults is, when we hear from students that they don't feel that it fits, to help them see their gifts, see the places and spaces where they can thrive, and really not decide early on that art isn't for them. Maren, would you add anything to that as someone who works with little artists?
Yeah, I would also like to say, speaking to you personally, like, you couldn't walk the first time you tried. So you had to try again. Drawing and painting and playing instrument, like, these are all skills, right? Like, when we practice them, we get better at them. And so that's what, like, I try and reinforce in my classroom. And also, like, on top of everything that Laura had said about, art is feeling and all of these things, all these beautiful things that art can bring us, art and creating music is also critical thinking and problem solving. And, like, every single day my students show up to my space and they come up with a creative solution to a creative problem, and that is what am I going to create today? And there's no other space in the school where that is, like, apparent or where it can happen as fluidly. And so, like, thinking of how impactful that is on the brain, it's so incredible. It's so incredible because they have to come up with idea. They have to figure out how they're going to make it. And when something goes wrong, they have to figure out how they're going to fix it. And if they're going to start over or if they are going to turn it into something else. And there's so many micro decisions that are made along the way. And I think that's kind of forgotten about too. So, like, above just painting or just drawing or just playing an instrument, there's so much more that happens.
Is there any room for art appreciation For example, I really enjoyed going through the Louvre in Paris. I really enjoy ushering at the Paramount and at the Ledge. Do we teach any sort of art appreciation?
Aaron, is it that within the standards?
Yeah, so we have, within the state standards, there's connect, create, respond, and reflect. And so I would say that we do a lot of art appreciation with, like within my classroom at least. And I know that there are opportunities, which this grant is a part of, like going to places like the Institute of Art and bringing our students to the spaces where they can appreciate, because I just read a study actually about how impactful looking at art firsthand is, and how it just lights up your brain, and how like it just releases all this dopamine because it's so good for you, and because art is amazing, right? And so like that grant helps bring us the access to not only creation but appreciation.
And I would just add on to that, we're very fortunate. In my time here in 742, we've had lots of opportunities where community partners will reach out and say, we want your students to come to us. We want to come to your students. And our teachers do a brilliant job of helping our students understand that this is an opportunity to enjoy, but also to reflect, to appreciate, to come back to the classroom and have those discussions, to use those experiences as a catalyst for writing and talking and developing academic vocabulary. And so when our students are able to take in a show or participate in a theater production at the elementary, or see a musical group, or have a musical group come in, that appreciation side of really thinking deeply about what they saw and felt is part of that programming for our students.
Do we have a play in a week? I know the Great Theater one time had play in a week.
Yep, so that's a universal opportunity for our fifth graders across the district. So all of our fifth graders, and that's been a couple of years now, we've been able to provide that for our students. And I think Lincoln just got done this last week, didn't they? So it's a great opportunity. And that's one of those partnerships where students all get to access, they all get to participate in a way that fits their needs, where we see, you'll hear countless stories from our elementary staff of kids who just thrive, kids who they didn't expect to be able to stand up in front of their peers and say lines that are just doing amazing things as part of this great theater partnership, and it's highly valued in our system.
When I usher at the Paramount, it's fun to watch school kids come in. They bring them in by the busload. How many times do our students get exposed to that?
It often depends on what the opportunities are that the Paramount is having. And so if the Paramount is doing a show that really aligns with programming for our elementary or secondary students, we have a great relationship with their community partner director, Amy Myron, and she's very great about reaching out and saying, how do we get your students here? Last year, they had a couple of violinists that came in, and our middle school students were able to see that. We had some of our students attend the Lightning Thief play that the Paramount did as well. And so with great theater and the fifth grade play, that's something we guarantee every year. That's going to happen for our students as they go through the elementary programming. With a place like the Paramount, it depends on their season. It depends on the acts and the groups that they've got coming in to perform. But Amy's great. Anytime she sees an opportunity, she's always willing to reach out, to partner, to say, how do we really connect to the students and bring this opportunity either into the schools or have your students come to us.
How about transportation? Who pays for that?
So if we have transportation costs to have students go, we usually work as a district to figure out what are the funding sources that are available. We try to plan for these early. We try to also be budgeting and thinking ahead of what might be the possible opportunities. And so we have an opportunity to start our budgeting process for the education department early. And part of that process is bringing in our art lead to say, what are the things that we can see coming so that we can be planning ahead for that. If we don't plan ahead, it gets trickier, but we've we've gotten some great processes in place to be able to be thinking ahead and forecasting those needs we might have. The other piece is very often we can bring those artists to the school to take out the transportation. And so there are many times where an artist is coming and performing at the Paramount in the evening. They're arriving that morning and they might be able to perform at a school early afternoon. So we can take out that transportation piece and get that access to students right in their schools.
Thank you very much for your work on this grant. My question would be kind of end product. As you are doing this, are you evaluating the programs that we are currently offering at various levels? And will eventually there be a recommendation for here are the art and music opportunities that should be offered at various levels for students in District 742?
So I think that work will be highlighted, but that's just part of our process and protocols as a district. We're always taking a look at where do we see student interest, student need. You have had the opportunity as a school board to hear about course proposals, and so there are often times where we say we've got a new need, we've got a creative way to bring more arts programming, just like we would sunset other courses. We follow those same processes. So bringing in bringing in new courses and learning opportunities kind of comes through that curriculum review process. Each content goes through its own processes, and so our arts programming is able to go through those processes as well to be able to really evaluate how things are going. Evaluation's part of a curriculum review, and so just like we would evaluate how is our math program doing, when our arts programming is up for evaluation, we go through that process as well, collecting data, gathering input, thinking about any refinements or changes we'd like to make to programming.
As you were talking briefly about barriers, I couldn't help but thinking about the perhaps overly focus on the core subjects, the basic skills, and we don't include creative expression, critical thinking, perhaps, that are included in these kinds of music and art programs. And I don't know if that's a barrier, if that focus is a barrier for us, but maybe that's something we have to think about.
Yeah, I think that speaks to the idea that we really want to highlight for students the benefits and also be thinking about creative ways, because sometimes it's not that a student says, I just want to let go of the arts. They're struggling to say, I only have this many slots in my schedule. I'm interested in a lot of things. District 742 offers a great, wonderful wide range of opportunities for students. And so the unintended consequence is that sometimes causes forced choices. So some of the things that the team has talked about is just what might be creative ways to think about how we use time differently to increase access for students who say, I'm really passionate about this, and I don't want to miss out on something else.
As a high school administrator in the past, I remember scheduling students with no lunch so that they could be in two musics and eat their lunch while they're doing one of those musics.
Exactly what I'm talking about. Yep.
Well, Milo does eat lunch every day and is in band and choir at Apollo, so, which is really great because I don't know who the powers that be might be sitting right behind you that allowed that for this year, for her to be able to be in both and have that double connection, because she loves both. She's like, how do I choose? Yes, as a former arts teacher, I'm super into this discussion, and really thank you for laying out what you've done. And Maren, I love to hear the passion in what you do, and that you just love to create an environment where kids love to come and be with you. So thank you for that. If you can convince my daughter, who is an artist, who stopped wanting to go to art classes because she doesn't want anybody to critique her art. Not that she has any room in her schedule right now at Apollo, but she paints something for me every Christmas and every birthday, and I have them all up in my house, and it's like, you should go and be in art class. And she's like, no way. So that's an interesting, it's not because anybody did anything to her. She had great, wonderful art teachers. It's just like, I don't think I can handle the criticism on something I love so dearly. So yeah, it's kind of interesting. What I've seen from my kids and from other kids that are in art programming at 742 is just their resilience is what I wanted to kind of bring up to you. They're doing solo ensemble right now in choir. They're getting ready for that. And Milo wants nothing to do with it. Like, she doesn't want to stand in front of people and sing unless she's with the big group. But it's part of the programming. And so she's, not doing a solo, but she's helping with an ensemble. And so it's that resilience of things she doesn't want to do that she's forced out of her comfort zone a little bit. And the director at Apollo does a great job at that. I have a couple of questions and one other comment. So one question was, do we know the reasons, and I think we talked about this with Walker West before, but what are the main reasons why students don't make that jump from 5th grade to 6th grade? I'm thinking specifically in music, signing up for that band, choir, orchestra. Do students, I know are my friends doing it, right? Or do I want to do it? But are there other barriers that you found out that make that jump pretty hard?
I think the general music course is very different. So in a general music course, the purpose is to expose kids to a wide variety of music opportunities. And then when you're in band or you're in orchestra, often it can be hard. The music can be not as connected to kids because they're thinking they're gonna, play something they hear in whatever they're streaming right off the bat, and that's not going to happen. It takes some skill and some practice. Right. And so sometimes students will join and they'll think this is hard, or this wasn't what I thought, or I'm not into this music. And so that can be a barrier. And that's been a big focus of the Walker West professional development, is some different ways to approach music instruction. And then I think the barrier of comfort. So it's a big jump to go from elementary to middle school, and you spoke to the friends, but also middle schoolers tend to just really blend in. They like to not a lot of them like to stand out. That can be a kid's worst nightmare. And so thinking about if I pick something that feels uncomfortable to me or new to me, that can be really scary at that developmental stage. So some of the work that we're trying to do around making those intentional connections in 5th grade, prioritizing the Walker West artists for 5th graders, and really helping them understand when you're doing this African drumming, like drumming is an option that's part of band. If you really love this and this is bringing you joy, there's a way to continue this path, and then trying to do that intentional connection with the music teachers. The music teachers also just planned the elementary to visit secondary, right? They don't really get an opportunity, but Wednesdays affords them a little bit of an opportunity where they have extended time, where the secondary is still in session. So to be able to come into those spaces and see, so they can speak firsthand, I was in band. I just went to South and I saw this and it was amazing. I visited choir, and did you know, so that they can start to help kids kind of create that picture in their mind that might be really fuzzy.
Thanks for sharing that. The community piece is really interesting to me because we have such a very musical and rich art community in our area. Again, just going with what Milo does, since that's what I get to hear about. She is in Interact at Apollo, and Project 37 came, which is an all-ages music show, came, and that's one of the things that they're volunteering for. But just that community connection, like I can go somewhere and hear Taylor Swift stuff, and I can volunteer for that. And so that community connection seemed really important. She was really excited about it. And the last thing I was going to talk about was guitar class, because Milo also took that this year. And I know, kind of when we see those course proposals come up, I'm like, I wonder if anybody will take that. But then her knowing that there may be a 2 as well, I mean, it's just really amazing, because then she and both my boys sat and played guitar together and sang over Christmas break. And it was just like, wow, Apollo did that for you. Way to go. So thank you for all your work. Thank you for being here, Maren.
Okay, anyone else? Lauren, Maren, thank you very much. Your passion is very evident tonight, so thank you for sharing.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, we have the Apollo School presentation presented tonight by Principal Justin Skelrud.
Run it back. All right, good evening, Superintendent Putnam, Board Chair Haas, and members of the board. Just give me one moment to get logged in here. All right, it is my honor to sit here today as principal at Apollo High School and share what's happening in our school community. We have a lot of exciting things happening at Apollo, so to be able to choose and highlight a few to bring tonight was a difficult decision, but really want to focus on our 4 pillars that we're focusing on as a district this year and show you what we're doing at Apollo to make sure that all of our students are finding safety and a sense of belonging and learning to collaborate and learn to be the best citizens they can be when they leave our space. I'm going to start with a short video that highlights a lot of amazing people within our building, and you're going to see that's going to be the theme of what I'm presenting tonight. It's about the people. It's about the staff. It's about the students that are in our space that make our school amazing, and I wish there was so many that we could have chosen from to put in this video. So just to be able to share a few with you tonight of these folks, I'm just so proud of every single one of them. So I'm going to go ahead and start with that.
High school is a big part of our lives. It's where we spend so much of our time. But let's be real, it's not just about classes and grades, it's about finding your people, feeling like you matter, and knowing you belong. Because when you feel connected, everything changes. You're more confident, more focused, and honestly, just happier. So let's talk about why having a sense of belonging at school isn't just, it's everything.
As a principal, as a leader in the building, I want to make sure that every parents, every students, specifically every staff that walk into this building feels a sense of belonging. Regardless of where they came from, what they believe, their background, we want to make sure that we're promoting and creating that positive culture that serves everyone regardless of who they are. When we look for each other and we support each other and we respect and value and honor each other, then we're creating an inclusive environment for everyone.
And just knowing that I have a community behind me, knowing that I have friends and just a group of people behind me honestly makes me feel like coming back to school every day. My biggest sense of belonging is probably speech. My junior year, when I kind of started getting into the community, we started kind of talking to people. It kind of really helped just to have that sense of belonging and that group of people that you're always with, and it almost felt like a family.
I feel good. I feel like I belong. Everyone here is kind and makes you want to feel like you want to be here and have fun at school. I've struggled with language arts and stuff, and I've had teachers or some there that I could get help and make my work better than what it was.
It's a very wonderful place and heartwarming, welcoming, and the team is always here for you when you need to talk to someone, and also teachers here are always here for you to talk to.
When I walk into school in the morning, I feel a sense of belonging from everyone at the school, whether it's teachers, coaches. Teachers can push me to stay academically strong, and they also can help me when I'm struggling. Coaches have taught me to push through any hard situations, and I just always know that there's people here to support me at Apollo. But at Apollo, it just feels like our teachers, our administration, our support staff, that everyone is here for the kids. We want the kids to do well. So if I can make them feel like they are wanted, which they absolutely are, and I want to see them be successful. And I'd ask at the time whatever I'm asking them to do, they know that when they're here, they're safe and they're supported, and they can just focus on the task at hand.
I want to get to know the person the best I can so I can help them the best I can. So just always having conversations with teachers, knowing that they can come talk to me about a concern that they have for a student is really important. Even these kids that they say that they don't need the help and they don't, they seem like they don't really care, they do. It's just those things that get you through the week that make me come back each day. I just want them to be able to talk to me about whatever they want to.
So every day when I come into work, you can see the happiness in the students. They just feel welcome to see a familiar face. Every day when they walked in, they have a lot of friends now. The staff, it's very welcoming. They're joining the sports now. They're going to the events. Now they want to be, they want to participate in everything that's going on in the school. They're asking questions about the events, the games, the dance. They want to be part of the family here at Apollo.
I walk into this building every single morning, knowing or believing that I belong here. We're very fortunate to lead a very diverse school community like Apollo.
That's what makes our school special.
And why we feel
We belong.
high school is a big part.
So I want to start tonight by talking about high academic achievement and some things that we're extremely proud of that we have at Apollo High School. One of the things that we started a few years ago was recognizing students and their academic achievements. We're all probably familiar with it, with an honor roll and getting a certificate, and extremely proud to hand out the A honor roll and the B honor roll. But we've got some students that work incredibly hard to pass all of their classes, and we talk often about graduation and graduation rates, and we wanted to acknowledge them on the same level that the students that were achieving those awards with those A and B honor roll certificates. So I'll show you on the next slide, but all of our students that get an A honor roll, B honor roll, or earn all their credits for a trimester get the same certificate that they can bring home, and we encourage them to hang on their refrigerator and to show their parents and all those things to be proud of. But we also highlight they do get handed out in our advisory, and it's the majority of our students, and we want our other students to rise to that occasion and to achieve that goal and to reach that goal. They come down for a little freezy snack as a group by grade, and they always enjoy that time together too. But it's that extrinsic motivation sometimes that hopefully we can get them to really kind of to continue to work hard, as most of our students do. We're also incredibly proud that 20% of our 11th and 12th graders earned college credit through the AP Advanced Placement Exam, college in the schools, taking a college class at Apollo with a teacher that has the credentials through a university or through post-secondary education options. So 1 in 5 of our students in upper class earned college credits in some sort, and then take that with them to the university of their choice after. We also have our bilingual seal. Last year was in 7 languages, and we will increase that to 9 for this upcoming school year. And I'm proud to say we have 74 students that are going to take that test on Friday. And those are 74 students that are trying to be certified as being bilingual, trilingual. This will be the first time we have a student taking ASL and to get that certification. But when it's quite it's an intense test, and then it goes through a process of getting rated, and then there's the potential to earn college credit through that. And we recognize those students, and I'll show you here on the next slide. Sorry, coming up very shortly. I just wanted to highlight a few, again, focusing on high academic achievement. Sometimes I heard it in the last presentation talking about doing what my peers do. And it's so very true as far as, picking classes. And we wanted to show, hey, these students are taking these hard classes. And I'll let you read it for yourself, but I appreciate the far right. Take AP Language Arts, even if you hate it, it's fun. Trust us. That goes a long way, right? You've got, because oftentimes, and you saw one of our amazing advanced language arts teachers, Ms. Iden, but there's an opportunity to get in and make a relationship with a teacher and challenge yourself. When we use the word hate, because it's probably hard, but once we accomplish that and achieve at a high level, there's that sense of accomplishment, and that's what it's all about, putting yourself out of your comfort zone, taking advanced classes, trying something different. And these student testimonials have been really great. We're in that registration process. Our freshmen register tomorrow, so they get to choose, start thinking about what that looks like, and that's an important process for us, because then that's how we build our staffing based off what our kids register for. So we've been very intentional. It's a 5-step process. We've been meeting with families. We had a great turnout last week, and talking to Principal Kenzie at Tech, they did as well, just getting information to our 8 through 11 families about what's happening for the next school year. I've got a proud mom taking a picture, so I'm going to wait here for a moment. So on the left, that's those certificates that we talked about. So you see they're the same. Upper left is A honor roll, bottom left is B honor roll, and the far right it says credits earned. And they get those the same day, same time, and we highlight that. On the far right, that was a celebration of our bilingual SEAL students, and that was a little breakfast that was put on by Graham and working with some of our district level administration to come over and recognize students and what they accomplished and having an opportunity to highlight that achievement. Safety is so crucial, and it's something that we talk about all the time in schools. And we know that when we welcome our students in, we have a huge responsibility to keep them safe. And that's a promise that we make to our families, that we do everything we can to provide safety at a high level. Again, focusing on the people, relationships help create a safe environment. And we have so many people in our building that their responsibility is to build good relationships, be proactive with students, and using those relationships sometimes when they need to make sure that they can, keep kids safe, keep our school community safe. And I feel safe every day when I'm at Apollo. We have something called Eagle Time, and Tech has the same called Tiger Time. It's a 30-minute block, and twice a week we're able to, give lessons that our teachers present around relationships, around safety, and also around college and career readiness and whatever we need in our school community to get that information to our kids. But we're very intentional about that to make sure that we're providing all the information they need. I'll show you our individual use restrooms in a few slides when we get there and talking about safety. But we had Eagle Time lessons about using an individual use restroom and the responsibility of that when it's being shared with teachers and students and all students, and just things that, we want to make sure everyone had the same message, and it's been great. They've been doing a great job of keeping those spaces clean and for everyone to be able to use. Active supervision is so important, and what that is exactly what it sounds. We ask our teachers between classes if they're available to stand outside their room, and it's not a negative thing. It's just saying hi to students as they walk by, having a conversation. We have a student support team that are so engaged with our kids, and that includes dean of students and our CSOs, which is our security, but really they're there just as supports to our kids and to help them as needed, and just knowing students and knowing they can come to and sharing information, with them as it comes about, so we can help them with whatever it may be. As I mentioned, our dean of students and assistant principals, they have daily check-ins with students. We looked at our students who struggled academically first trimester and by grade, and they have a list, and they call those kids in every day and see what they need. If they're not there, they find out why they're not there and continue to build those relationships to see how we can help them and turn that around from last trimester. And then also our single-use restrooms is something that we're fortunate to get this summer. And I'll show you a picture of those in a moment and can explain and talk about those a little more. So that picture on our upper left, that's our student support team. The people in that picture, their job is to work with students all day long. Most of those people in there provide some sort of supervision and an extracurricular role. You have, our head basketball coach is there, our head track coach is there, our head esports coach is in that picture, our head boys soccer coach, and just lots of great people that just want to be around kids. And they're there to work with them, to keep them safe, to be in the halls, to make sure kids are going to class, to check passes, and call home when they need to. Our truancy interventionist is in that picture, who works with is a bridge between families and truancy, and if it gets to a level where there's missing a lot of school, working with the different agencies that keep track of truancy. So just a lot of wonderful people. And then that bottom right picture is just a picture that I took as I walked in the cafeteria, kind of looking for that. And I'll just highlight, you've got 3 adults standing here, and they're all in our student support team. One's a paraeducator, one's an assistant principal, and one's a dean of students. So they all have very different roles, but they know their responsibility in the lunchroom. They're actively supervising. They're there, they're present, they'll step in as need be, they'll talk to students as they're coming by, but their role is just to be available as needed and to continue to build those relationships throughout that lunch period. We all spend time in the lunchroom. We have 3 lunches. We try to be in there. I want our administration to be represented by at least 2 or 3 of us at all time, our dean of students and our other staff, just to be in there and to support and help our custodial with tables and all those things as that's happening. And then this picture here is our new single-use restrooms. We have 4 sets of these, and they're each in a corner of the learning community. As I said, these are for staff and these are for students as well. We got a lot of feedback, myself and Superintendent Putnam, and anytime we had student groups, we had a bathroom issue. Students didn't like going into the bathroom. They didn't, a lot of congregating in there. We would come in and clear them out and they'd fill up again. The amount of, I presented to this board and you heard me, we talked about the amount of, urinals and all those things, and we fixed it. I mean, this is a problem that I can say is fixed. There has been 0 negative comments about a restroom at Apollo this year. I've received positive feedback from students and from parents, and that's a win. And I think we need to celebrate that because they are greatly appreciative. Any administrator that came to me and said, should we do this? I would say yes. And I think it provides a level of, for students, a level of security and a level of privacy when they're using that space to know that they're safe and private to take care of their needs as they do throughout the day. Student and family belonging is extremely important to me and our administration, and I know to our school district as well. There's some things that we do intentionally every year. We started doing home visits to start the year for our freshman students, and I know the district also does that with our new students and our kindergartners, and that's a program that we started and we're extremely proud of. And it came out of the idea that I had when I was an assistant principal, is that so many of our families, they dread a call from the school. The first time that you call maybe is because something happened that wasn't great. Some sort of behavior, something that you need to talk about. So our goal is to go to every freshman home and to introduce ourselves. And we do it in large teams. We're always with 2 or 3 people. We make sure that that student and family's main language is represented by one of the adults there, so we're able to communicate. And we have great conversations with them and just welcome them. And we do that at the beginning of August. We tell them about activities they can participate in and lots of things that are happening in our building. Welcome them to open house. And make sure that they know and have all those. They get a packet that has all the forms and all the things you need to know, and we do that in lieu of mailing that for our freshmen. We did a homecoming community picnic this year. All of our staff, we chose to do that as part of our family engagement time. All staff have that time. And the Friday of our homecoming events, and I'm excited to talk about homecoming in a few minutes, we had all of our staff there, and it was a great turnout. There was food, there was games, there was a lot of good community, so it was very exciting. And then we have our family picnic at the end of the year. Same concept, all of our staff is there. We invite everyone to come. It's really just a big barbecue that everyone can come and talk about the great year that we had and really end the year on a high note. So here's some pictures from our freshman home visits. You can see one of the teams that went out that day. A lot of people wearing their red, white, and blue. One of the ideas our head football coach had this year is that he wanted a list of all the students that had played football the year before and have a jersey with their graduating class on it. So he went around with some of his assistant coaches and brought that and took pictures for them. So you can see that young man that's standing there holding his jersey. And then you have that is my son. And then you've got another student receiving his packet that I talked about. And those packets do come in 3 languages to make sure that students have what they need for, to make sure everything's translated for them. On the left, that's a picture of our homecoming picnic that we had this year. And thank you for those of you that were able to attend. It was greatly appreciated. And on the far right is just one of the stations we had at our end of year picnic last school year and having families and coming out for community. This homecoming, we did something different, and I have to thank our activities director, Carl Heine, who's behind me, and also assistant principal, Courtney Gordon. They were the 2 that really ran with this idea that me and Carl had when we were brainstorming about how we could do things differently. I would say it was a great success to the point when we were doing it, a lot of people said, how are you going to do this? And we said, we will make it happen. But for example, Ryan Hauge, the principal at Rocori, came and asked if he could shadow me for the day because he wanted to see how we did it so they can do it next year. And we've had a lot of questions, myself and Carl, about how we were able to logistically do this. But we wanted to bring homecoming to all of our kids, and we wanted to do it during the school day. So when we had the idea, we brought it to Dr. Putnam and Dr. Harris, and they said, absolutely, but make sure we talk to Tracy Bowe and make sure we have all of everything covered there, and we did, and she gave us some good ideas of how to do all the things in that regard, and we went with it. So We played a varsity soccer game, a volleyball game, and had a swim meet during the school day on homecoming. So those things happened from 1 to 3:30, and then we had the picnic, which you saw the picture of, and that led into the football game, and then we had the dance right after that. So there was an opportunity for, I think it was about a 30,000 step day that day, which is good, but we were running around and it was great. How we did that is we had to, when talking to Tracy, we were gonna have the community come in. So it was Apollo Tech volleyball in the gym, and it was Albany came in and swam in the pool, and then we had Rocori for soccer out at the field for boys soccer. Students that attended, they needed to fill the field trip form because they were going to be in with our community. Parents could come. We weren't taking that opportunity. You could pay for a ticket, and our kids could go. Our other criteria was that there was no ODRs, office discipline referrals, so students had to be, have a great start to the year, and we were promoting it, and we had no issues with that. Students were great with, doing what they needed to do, and they had to be passing all their classes. And if they didn't, then they were going to be working during that time to get caught up on their classes. This was at the end of September. So we had 959 students, so about 76% of our students attended an event, and that doesn't include the students that played in the event. So we were very pleased with that turnout. On Monday of homecoming, we had 192 students that had permission forms in, but didn't meet the academic criteria. We let them know, and by Friday, that number was down to 72. So you know that they wanted to do this, and that's a good measure of that because they got caught up, they took the test, they got the assignment in, and were able to go attend the homecoming events. How we did it is at lunch, we had a list of who had the forms in, the permission forms. You went over to a table, you chose your one event, and you got a wristband. And once you got your wristband, that was your admission ticket in. We knew that potentially volleyball and swimming would be done first. So the students that got done there then went down to soccer. The reason is because soccer's got a time, so you know when it's going to be done based off that. And we had it timed out to be done 15 minutes before the buses. Soccer got done, students went up, went to the bus chute, and those that went home, and those that stayed for the event stayed. And it worked great. There was zero issues, and it was a wonderful afternoon. So here's some pictures. On the far left is the volleyball game. Top right is this boys soccer game versus Rocori. Bottom right is the Albany swim meet. And like I said, this all happened between 1 and 3:15. And any student that wanted to go home that participated was able to get on the bus and go home. So a lot of students gave good feedback. Never been to a game before. I'd like to try that next year. Tell me more about this and all the things that we were trying to accomplish. And our kids got to play in front of packed crowds, which happens, some sports. Maybe one game a year you get a really big crowd, but this was a great opportunity for our students. Staff belonging is extremely important to us, along with student belonging. Our amazing assistant principal, Laura Fries, had an idea. She's like, I want to do a competition. She explained it to me. I said, if you run with it, we can do it. And it turned out to be, it was so much fun. So in the month of December, we had an undercover dress up week. So everyone had a team, and it was everyone in the school from food service to maintenance teachers, and it was all random, and you were on a team, and you had to collaborate a team color and all the things that everyone could participate in. So the first day was a socks and sandals day, and the thing is you didn't tell the kids. So I would say 80% of staff I was wearing this and sandals. And by the end of the day, there's some girl, and they started to catch on. What's going on? What's going on? The next day was a color day, so you had teams. It was the pink team and the blue team, and they were starting to really get it. But the big one was on flannel day. So you can see that is after school. We asked anyone who had flannel on to come down, and that was a hit. And the kids started to figure it out. But you can see some of the different things that were happening. Some of the teams. The bottom right was the pink day. It was really funny because on the last day there was a gingerbread, and at their staff meeting some gingerbreads were handed out, and you had asked people, do you have the gingerbread? Well, gingerbread man. And if you did, you gave it to them, and it blew up, and the kids started to find out. So now the kids are looking for people with gingerbread, and Hillary Johnson walks in the building at 3:00, and 3 girls run up to her. Do you have the gingerbread? She's like, what are you talking about? It was just this, and it was a really neat way to lead into kind of that long winter break. So really having our staff feel a sense of that as well. Another event that we collaborated with, and again, with Dr. Putnam and Dr. Harris and Principal Kenzie at Tech, was the Future 100. And I know Molly shared that with the board when she presented, but from Apollo side, the Future 100 is 100% of our seniors having a plan when they leave our schools. And our event, we were so pleased. Our community came out and they supported. We had an opportunity. We had 240 out of 302 seniors filled out or begin to fill out college applications. 180 applied for St. Cloud State and St. Cloud Technical College and started those applications or finished. We had St. John's and St. Ben's had staff helping with the Common App and working with students. We also had a great opportunity on the far left. We had businesses. We had about 30 businesses that came out and were talking about opportunities now, like things that we can do, that we can get you started in our business or for after high school, and really made some good connections there. The bottom picture is community members, and there was about 50 of them working with groups of 1 or 2 to helping them fill out their college application. And speaking of, there's Hillary helping one of our students fill out an application there. So it was just a great group of people from the school district and the school board and from our workforce that came and supported that day. And we're extremely thankful, and our students were as well. And then Epic Day is another opportunity for students exploring potential interests and careers, and that happens at St. Cloud Technical College. All of our 10th graders went to the event at St. Cloud Technical College in October. Students get exposure to the college in different college and career pathways, which then they can bring that interest back and work with their counselors and work with our college and career pathway coordinator, Jameson, who's amazing, and get an idea of, if I want to do this job, what do I need to take in high school, and what should I be applying for, and where should I be going to school. And we have those resources to help our students once they've piqued that first interest in what they may want to do after high school. And students get those real life hands-on experiences at Epic Day. And here's just some pictures from that day. And it was really great to see all the different things that our kids were doing, and all the different, different workforce representation of what you can do, and our kids getting to answer questions, ask questions, and to have a hands-on experience. So that's a little bit about us at Apollo High School, and I appreciate you taking the time, and I am open for any questions.
Wow. You could have ended at the video. I thought, okay, well, now we have to listen to this presentation. And you just rocked it again. That was so impressive. Anybody have any questions or comments, Diana?
I have a comment. Okay. I have a comment on the homecoming event. I got to participate that day as a community member, going to the soccer game and then coming back for the football game. And I can't tell you how amazing that was. And I know the work that it goes to take on an event like that with the wristbanding and all of that. I was so impressed by that effort that day. It reduced a barrier for some kids that can't come back in the evening to go watch an activity. So my challenge for you is, as a comment from a parent from North said, wouldn't it be great if we could get the North kids here that day too? As a former North teacher who took students to the Mall of America, buses of 800, I bet we could get them from North to Apollo that day. So great work on that effort that day, but I'm going to push you one more challenge.
And I appreciate it. Thank you for the kind words. And the man behind me has come to me with some ideas on how to get our junior high students involved in something similar, and we will continue to talk about that. I appreciate it. But it's definitely been in those conversations, and to grow that for sure.
Let me add on to Diana's comment, and this is probably a statement to you all at Apollo, but really the district. I, for a number of years, did NCAA compliance, and my goal was always to work to yes. And there are a lot of places that simply don't do that, and they take the easy answer. And so, particularly in having come from St. Cloud State and seeing some of the bureaucracy, to be willing to figure out how to make it work. And I know contracts can be difficult with staff, but kudos to all of you for thinking outside of the box and figuring out how it could be successful, as opposed to taking the easy answer, which is no is an easy answer. But it doesn't always get us where we want to be. I'm frantically looking through the data deck. I do have one question that I'll probably keep looking, but on one of the early slides, the question was, students feel like in our school that we respect each other, and I believe it was 60% that were disagree or strongly disagree. There were a lot of slides that were much more positive than that. Why was that an outlier, and what sorts of things are you doing to, I mean, obviously homecoming is one of those things, anything that you can do to try and create belonging, but what's your lived experience related to student respect amongst each other?
Yeah, you know, that's a really great question, and it was similar last year, and we actually focused our building goal on that, because if you also look at it, our students, they feel connected to the adults. So you can see in our data that their experiences with the adults are positive, but as a whole, it's those peer relationships. And again, it's everything we go back to in Eagle Time is just how do we show respect? How do we build those positive relationships? How do we continue to grow and understand that, the words we use, and I do not want to use this as an excuse, but the role that social media plays in that, and how easy it is to get behind a phone and a screen, and the intentionality behind teaching, about cyberbullying and teaching about what those ultimate effects can have. I know in their health class right now, they're talking about, bullying prevention and those things that sometimes those young brains aren't thinking about, is those words and those things can hurt to an extreme level where someone's going to take that, potentially harmful steps. So we want to make sure that we are continually talking with our students about those positive relationships, but we have work to do there, and there's no doubt about it, and we're continuing to do that.
Just since I have the microphone, just a couple of things. And academically, I mean, obviously this board has talked significantly about some of the challenges in some of our test scores. I just do want to call out all of your efforts on Future 100. Once again, an opportunity to think outside the box. Your numbers were pretty impressive there in terms of the number of seniors who applied at an institution. And again, so many times we hear you have to see it to be it. And I think that helps. And then same with their certificates. And trust me, I am of a generation where sometimes I think we over certificate, over trophy, over. I also understand that we have students who don't get recognition in a lot of ways, and particularly from the academic perspective. So to think about not just the A students and the B students, but to give the students who maybe are struggling or they're a little bit more challenged, recognition that, I mean, I tell my own boys this all the time, and they're much more privileged, but there's a heck of a lot of life that is simply showing up and trying hard. And that doesn't necessarily get you an A or a B, but you'll find out that in life there's a lot of people who can't even do that bare minimum standard. And so, talking about progressing on schedule, yeah, it may not be A-level work, it may not be B-level work, but everybody likes to be recognized, and particularly amongst populations who maybe don't see that. I think trying to put that carrot out there, certainly when it comes to some of the standardized things, still gives them hope that they can get somewhere. And again, that's Future 100 as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
Justin, thanks for the presentation. And I just wanted to say congratulations and great work to you and to Carl, who's sitting behind you there. Again, having been a building administrator, hearing what you have gone through and the programs you're initiating, that's tremendous. It's a tremendous effort, and long-term has a big impact on kids. Heather mentioned the Future 100. I happened to be there that day and work with kids, and I have to say I was very impressed with the kids that I worked with who knew what they wanted to do or where they wanted to go, and really how to go about it. And some of them had PSEO experience and were really very focused. But the way you're using your support staff and making connections with kids just seems to be ideal in terms of what we need to be doing. And then just the last thing, one of your early slides, the student in there had to quote the two kids together, class of all time. I think we just invented a new term. We've all heard of GOAT, greatest of all time. Now we have COAT, the class of all time at Apollo. So that's great.
Yeah, but that one might catch on. I know, I'll tell the
I
teachers
think
at the
it's
next
got
staff
some-
meeting, that's the goal, so.
We want to be a COAT. Yep.
Thank you.
Well, Principal Sculver, see what happens when you're good at something, then you get added on. Like, let's bring all the middle school kids. Okay. You're like, yeah, this is really great. I'm so glad I succeeded. There's no shyness on my part of how much I love Apollo. And everyone in this room knows that, and everyone in my family knows that, and everyone in the community knows that. I learned some interesting things, though, that I didn't know. From your data deck, 80% of extracurricular activities are run by Apollo staff. It's beautiful for those kids to be able to, see their coach during the day and be able to really connect with them. So that just wanted to call that out. I was going to talk about the same thing that Heather did, like the two things can be true thing. And we saw this in the South data deck as well, where the majority of students are disagreeing that students respect each other, but then the majority are agreeing that they feel socially accepted, that they feel safe, that they belong. And I was going to ask you to talk a little bit about it, but it seems like that's just, it's social media, but also anything else you wanted to add on that? That is that the adults prying them up from their bad relationships with each other? I know that's not necessarily true, but the discrepancy there is amazing.
And I think one piece that we need to do better to get a true cross-section is to get our students take that survey in Eagle Time. And looking at the amount of students that have taken it, we have work to do to get 100%
only 160.
completion as
Yeah,
well.
right.
We're at about 20 to 25% of our students take that. And I just wonder, sometimes that's an outlet for someone to share something that they're feeling
Yeah,
too.
right.
So how we as a staff can put more intentionality to get that full reading. And it may go either way, right? We don't know what's
Yeah,
going to happen with that. But I think we talked about arts and kind of a great presentation talking about going out and afraid to take that chance or afraid to be judged. And I see that students, you get versions of kids like those students that were in the video. I was so thankful that they did that, but to get that true expression of oneself because they're so afraid of not going back to it, but taking a video of that or what's going to be said. And that's middle school, high school, but continuing to teach, creating safe environments, I think to me is the most important part, socially and emotionally.
Yeah, it also makes me want to ask a student, even ask my daughter, what's the difference for kids between respect? Is that an adult word that we're using that to them is negative, versus this belonging and that's much more the culture that we thrive with here, that, respect is part of it. But anyway, that's a whole other subject. See, music right there. It's the arts. This is the theme. Oh, I'm about to start singing. All right. I did want to ask about one thing in the data deck that's concerning, and you touched on it a little bit, which is consistent attendance. So it's for student groups, there was one at 41%, there was one all the way up at 80%. So what are you seeing in that? And I know you were talking about your coordinator that works with that. What's going on there?
Yeah, we're very fortunate to have Mr. Duncanson. I can say since he took over his role in about January of last year, we've seen our attendance increase by 8%. So having a person that's good at what they do and getting kids to the right place. So that's just part of it though, but it's everything that we talk about, us as a district and this, everyone in the room as a board, is what are the barriers, what's happening, why are we not getting to school, and then finding out why, meeting with those kids that are having, that maybe struggle trimester one, and usually attendance is a component to that, and trying to figure out how we can support them. But, also there is some of those pieces of just not wanting to come to school or, getting to a point where we're making decisions that we're not going to attend class. And I think we've really done a good job of limiting that, keeping our halls clean and making sure that we don't, there's not students wandering around. But, why are they choosing not to attend all their classes? And those are questions that we ask them, and we ask their family when we're working with them to see what we can do differently. Is there an issue? Is it that piece where they don't feel a sense of belonging or they don't feel respected in a space? So I'm trying to get to the root of the why, because there's a reason why, and every student's different when it comes to that.
Thanks for sharing that. Two more things I wanted to say. One was that Milo said you always have a smile for her in the hallway, so way to go. He's like, he's always smiling, like always. It's pretty great, but also there's a lot to smile about. But so way to go. And then I think I've said this before when it was Apollo's time to present like tonight, but my kids they could go to PSEO starting in 11th grade, but none of them have chosen that, and Milo's not going to choose that either. And what she says is, she takes a lot of AP, and the boys did too, but she said, I don't want to miss time at Apollo. I don't want to miss time with my friends, and that just points to something really beautiful, that a lot of the times our community doesn't see. But if I meet someone new and they ask where my kids go and they're not from St. Cloud, and I'll say Apollo, and then they're like, oh, well, how is that? And I'm like, it's so great. And let me tell you how great my kids were prepared for U of M. And, it's just, I'm just really thankful that my kids are Eagles. So thanks for all your work.
Thank you.
Just wanted to keep adding on that survey again and just highlight what I feel, and the students and families I talk to is you and your staff there just doing a great job, especially kind of with this unique subset of students who kind of had a lot of school disrupted from COVID and everything. There's no normal way to approach them, but the way you guys are doing it is just so far seems pretty awesome. So thank you.
Thank you.
Just as I was thinking, a couple of comments to Natalie's point about attendance. I mean, it will be interesting over time because we'll get more studies about COVID and the impact of what that had. It occurs to me that we have more people who are working, remote work has become a thing, which I think changes. I mean, I see it in my own family. I work remotely now, and their impression of what it takes, like when I went to work every single day, you have to go to work, that's where it happens. And now it just changes a little bit, the tone and tenor and the belief system about it. And my last comment about that would be, I think at least growing up before the advent of smartphones, not even cell phones, but smartphones, being at home was social isolation. And so you avoided being at home. You wanted to go to school because if you didn't go to school, you didn't have contact with anybody. And I would imagine that has significantly changed how students think and believe about their interactions. Now, there's a whole nother set of it about we're more socially isolated, even though we're connected in so many different ways. But I think their perception of not being isolated is different and gives them an opportunity to stay at home and not think about it the same way. The last comment that I meant to say earlier, and I say this partly for the public good, but the transition to single person bathrooms, I think sometimes seems, again, some of us from other generations maybe just don't understand it, but the number of conversations I've had with my own kids about I hate to say it, but their discomfort in being in stalled bathrooms is incredible. I'm like, that's just how you do it. But the comfort level, and I've had my kids who have, now we live close enough to tech, but who have driven home at lunchtime to go to the bathroom to go back to school. And I'm like, what is wrong with you? So I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying that I support that. And I'm like, I don't get you. But it is something that is real for these students. And so if that's a solution, and I know that that's in some of our construction plans as well, I do want to call out that that's meaningful. And I don't want to say it's just for me. I've talked to parents throughout the district, and I had a parent tell me that her son won't eat breakfast because he needs to, and won't drink because he wants to make sure that he doesn't have to use a restroom prior to after school. and that this is a way that we can promote better attention and just better belonging and sense of self in place.
I would have had a better GPA with bathrooms like that. And everything you just said in that last comment, I've heard that too from parents, and this has solved that to an extent, including leaving and wanting to, be more comfortable at home, so.
Freshman meeting, how does that work? Freshman meeting days, you have staff that go door to door to meet students, or do you go as a group of 2 or 3, or?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So we have our assistant principals and myself we're working, and our dean of students come in a week early, and then they're working as well. So there's that. Puts 7 of us, and then we let teachers volunteer to do that as their extra duty assignment. So instead of working, we have a dance a week from Saturday. So in lieu of doing something like that, then they can spend a half day going out and visiting those families. So we have the teachers break that into half-day chunks, and then we also use our bilingual communication support specialists to make sure that we're able to communicate. And we go in groups, always at least 2, usually 3. And then we have one of our assistant principals, Courtney Gordon, sorts by neighborhood and gives you a packet of about 15. So your packet might say St. Joe, and then you go out to St. Joe, and she has them all neatly organized, so it's a pretty clean path. And we go through the different neighborhoods of all the students that are coming to Apollo, and it takes about 3 full days with about 10 people a day, and it's pretty slick.
That sounds great. Wish they would have done it when I was a kid.
The only thing we're contemplating changing for this year is we do it from 8 till 3. And we don't like our connection rate. We don't put anything private on a doorstep, and we always let them know ahead of time. Some folks just aren't comfortable and don't answer their door, but we maybe are going to flex that time to the afternoons to try to get people when they're home from work. So
That'd be very helpful, yes. Epic Day at St. Cloud Technical College. How do you get a whole bunch of kids over there, and what do they do when they get there?
yeah, so we coordinate, working with the EPIC group. There's actually a group of coordinators that plan the day, and then working with the district level administration. And we're provided some funding for the buses, so we get those buses secured right away. And we're already planning for next year, for next October. And then those buses come in waves. You take one class, that's all we were able to take, about 350 kids. So there's about 12 buses that came, and they picked up the Apollo students and dropped them off, and then they went to Tech, picked up the Tech students and those buses, and then McKinley as well. And then they do the drop off, and then they pick them and come home after about 2 hours.
Oh.
You try to do a kind of around lunches, so you're not disrupting the lunches, and the teachers understand the importance of the day, and they just know that those students will be out of the building for that time.
Okay. Family picnic. I've been there. It's nice. It's really good.
It's a great night, yeah.
One of the things that you did when I was visiting is you took me out to see a bit of the building, and the bathrooms are fabulous. It's really, really unique. I'm glad that we've done that. You talk about the advanced placement classes. Not everybody does great in advanced placement classes. I mean, they're hard. They're supposed to be hard. What if you come down with a C or a D when you're taking an advanced placement class? Is that going to reflect on your regular GPA?
There's a system in place of weighted grading for advanced placement classes. So your grade really, if you finish your class, let's just say with a C, on your GPA, it will reflect as a B. So there's an incentive there to know that it's a little bit harder, and that, your grade may not be, if you're typically used to getting an A or B, you may get a B or a C or something else, but understanding, explaining to the families that that's, part of taking this more rigorous curriculum. And then oftentimes when the students are younger, 9th and 10th grade, they figure it out and decide if that's the path and kind of learn those study habits and what that takes. And we try to create that so kids aren't discouraged from continue taking them as they get older.
Okay. Relationships. About half the marriages end up in divorce. And a lot of that is because of expectations. Is there any teaching of expectations or relationships in your school?
You know, I think from a higher level, just in general relationship building, proper communication, respectful communication, really getting into those interpersonal relationships. That's not a topic of a standard that we really discuss, but it's just we focus on how to create overall general relationships that then can carry into those friendships or those marriages and other really any place in a person's life.
That's fine. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
I know you've had a busy day. Okay, up next, we are moving on to our discussion and action items. We have 3 of them. First up, we have the approval of the girls soccer co-op. Presenting tonight, we have Dr. Jason Harris, Assistant Superintendent of Secondary Education, along with Apollo Activities Director Carl Heine.
Good evening, Chair Haas, Superintendent Putnam, board members. Tonight we're going to look for approval for the girls co-op. I'll let Activities Director Heine kind of walk through some of the things of how we came to this decision along with Principal Scholarud.
Yes, thank you for having us here tonight to discuss this movement here of girls soccer and forming a crush co-op, which we're looking for the first time since the big merger of the other crush sports. And got my co-pilot here, Principal Scholarud, to help me out here because this was a decision that I think it's important to say that wasn't just thought about and brought as an activities lead or activities department. This has been discussed with our building administrators, our assistant superintendent, and has been a planned and a thought out process. And it took a lot to get us to this point, and we'll explain that here as we go. But again, we're coming to you to look for board approval and merging our St. Cloud Apollo and St. Cloud Tech girls soccer programs to form the Crush. As we look at Crush cooperatives and we look at how we get here, we look at a variety of different things. Participation numbers is a big lead to getting us to these positions, and I'll have some data here in a little bit to show those participation numbers. But really, when we look at fielding teams, and both of our soccer programs on both sides of town look to field both a varsity and a JV competitive team. We do look to try to navigate some of that and how that works, and possibly field one team if we can sustain those numbers. But numbers kind of drive us to those locations. We also looked at safety and student participants. When you're looking at pulling students up and playing at a varsity level, what kind of goes into those things when those kids are involved in those sports? And, if you're looking at all of a sudden moving down and taking from the junior high to fill out and field those teams to make it an actual competitive team, you're looking at displacing junior high students and having them compete at a very high level as far as the physicality and the strength that it takes to compete sometimes. But also just kind of that nature of how do those numbers continue to grow? And if we put them on a place and the experiences aren't as good, both on the field and off the field, are those numbers going to stay, right? Or are we going to lose them over time because of us putting them in a tough spot? Also, we look at that access to opportunity for our district students and really trying to keep everything within our umbrella, right, in our district, and how do we continue to promote our athletes and students and give them the opportunities across the board, right? And we're in a position right now where our Apollo girls soccer program is struggling to field those numbers and that access to opportunity, and how that looks like on our side of town specifically. And then as we look at co-ops, we like to keep our kids in district, and we like to focus on how do we support our own students. And when you look to co-op outside of the district, you're really sending your kids to another school, and they're playing under that school's programming. So we really try to keep our students in district and feel that we as a district can provide the opportunities that our kids need to be successful under our umbrella and support them. So that's kind of how we get to this spot. So then the why, and again, why we're here, as I alluded to earlier, most of our programs and most of the teams that we compete against carry a full varsity and a full JV team. Where Apollo has struggled, and we've the last couple of years only carried a competitive varsity team, with our numbers hovering around that 20 participants. And that number kind of varies as the season goes, and continuing to keep those students out has been difficult. So we have only carried a varsity team, and so that means that all of our students that play girls soccer from 9th grade through 12th grade compete on that varsity level, leading to some different experiences for others. We also had to we pulled up 3 8th grade students to participate this year to get us to field that full varsity team. So, and then what I talked about earlier is athletes playing out of position, those 8th and 9th graders playing at that varsity level. There's a lot of good teams and competitive teams within our conference and with our sections that it's a tough experience for a lot of kids when they're going through those things. And then district junior high numbers, like I said, this decision came over a process, and as we look at, okay, maybe this just is just a bubble that's going through our high school level. So we kind of take that dive into the junior high numbers, and I'll show you again these numbers here in a little bit, but our numbers in the junior high are also declining for girls soccer, and not at a steady rate that we could say, okay, if we get through one more year, we could possibly field a full competitive team. Or if we moved another year ahead and we took some of these kids to bridge time, we're really just kind of displacing for a short time until we get to that same road, same path down the road. And then lastly, every 2 years, the Minnesota State High School League does a reclassification, which they take all the enrollments of all the schools, and then per sport, they redivide them based on classification. So in girls soccer, there's 3A, 2A, and single A soccer. Right now, currently, both Tech and Apollo are competitive in the 2A class. And so every 2 years, they redo this classification. But every year, as classifications are distributed, schools and sports in general have the opportunity to appeal that classification. So in this case of a merger, they would take both of our enrollments. They'd take the bigger school, which would be Tech, and they would take half of our student population at Apollo. They merge them together, and that's where we will get placed via classification when the high school league comes out with this here in about a month. But by doing it in this timeline, we are stating to the high school league that we are forming a new cooperative, and this would give us the opportunity to appeal that classification. So again, with this timeline, we will get the opportunity to submit our case to the State High School League, and hopefully be able to present in front of the board why we feel that our cooperative would be better at the specific classification. So that's kind of the timeline and why I'm sitting here today and not looking to prolong this into the spring or into the summer, because if we move past that timeline, we then would lose our opportunity to appeal that classification. So into the numbers, these are both the numbers of the Tech and Apollo girls soccer programs. And these numbers reflected the current registration of these programs this fall. So assuming every single one of those athletes stays and comes out and competes again, doesn't move, doesn't quit, doesn't whatever, these would be our numbers. So as you can see, I highlighted in red the 10th graders. So Apollo is losing 10 seniors, which was another significant impact to our numbers. Tech would be losing 5. So by removing them, Apollo would be left with 11 student participants in grades 9 through 12 from the current roster, and Tech would be with 30. 30 is a healthy number. 11 clearly is not, as all those kids would be playing at the same time. As we look at our junior high, this is where we thought, can you find a way to move some of these puzzle pieces and give us and prolong a little bit and give us another opportunity for recruitment, give us another opportunity to establish things. And as you look at our junior high numbers, North and Kennedy combined there had 26 students. And as we had the conversations with our activities coordinators at the middle level, North and Kennedy are very proud of that 26 number, knowing that a lot of those students came out to try something, were encouraged by friends, and that 8, as we have kind of tried to converse with some of those students and try to anticipate how many of those 8 probably would be moving, it was kind of a mixed review of how many of those 8 would continue on. Then as you look at the south side, you have a total of 18 students. And when you're looking at trying to get about 10 a grade, those numbers are very, very thin. Again, assuming every one of those same students comes out again the next year and the next year and next year all the way through their high school career. So that's where the numbers have led us to this position of we've looked at a lot of options, and we keep coming back to if you make it another year, you're still going to have the same problem. And right now with the high school league reclassification and the changing of every 2 years, the timing of this seemed appropriate to give ourselves the best opportunity to form this crush, continue to give our students an impactful opportunity at girls soccer, but also give us the opportunity to appeal that classification and keep us where we belong or we think we can compete at that level. Moving forward, and as we'd like to continue with this direction of this Crush Cooperative, Tech would become the host school, and really that's just kind of the home location. Both Tech's AD, Eric Ruska, and myself we kind of balance out our Crush co-ops. I take about half, Eric takes about half, and so that kind of depends on student need, facilities, those kind of things. So as we look at the person that's going to oversee that Crush Cooperative as far as the administrator, that usually is kind of discussed on student need, but Tech would be the primary location or the primary host. But as with all of our Crush sports and our Crush activities, we'd like to try to split our locations. So for instance, we got boys lacrosse and girls lacrosse coming up, and they each get about 7 or 8 home games. And we try to split those as close to 50-50 as we can. But understanding the other factors of space and other activities that are going on and the limitations of that space. And also, the student population and the students that represent Tech and the students that represent Apollo, we try to do the best that we can to give it an equal or fair opportunity. We like to push forward with Coach Boardman as taking over as the head coach of the Crush girls soccer program. Coach Boardman is the current head coach at Tech High School in that girls soccer program and has done a great job leading that group and continuing to build that family orientation over there at Tech. Currently, we are transitioning between coaches at Apollo, so it also led us to this decision, and we think she's going to do a great job and would be a great position to lead a new co-op. She also served as an assistant coach under me as I tried to go through and navigate the girls' basketball scene and as far as a new co-op, Crush Co-op. So she has a little experience in that and also has the resources with me as someone who's gone through that experience too. And then as we look forward, we'll look at to rebrand and make that Crush branding, which means the new uniforms and those kind of things that come with those co-ops. And we've already kind of discussed along the line how at the building level and with the district help, how those things can be worked out through our uniform budget that we use on a regular. But those are kind of the things that we are looking at as far as specific to this Crush Co-op. So our next steps tonight, I'm asking for board approval. Once that board approval is taken care of, we've already got the approval of our Central Lakes Conference. We already have the approval of Section 8AA, which is all mainly conference schools plus Little Falls. But we've had those conversations and they all support this decision for the co-op. So once we get board approval, we would submit to the high school league for our cooperative. And then once that is approved, these classifications, as I alluded to earlier, come out in February. mid-February, and then we have till the beginning of March to look at an appeal or reclassification. And that's kind of my information for you.
Report. I've got a few questions. The first one would be regarding crush teams. About how many teams do we have that are crush? Or do you know the exact number?
I can go by season.
Ah,
You got the,
It's roughly 75% of the teams are
The
crush.
teams. How many of our crush teams are cooperative sponsored?
Correct.
How many cooperative sponsored teams do we have with districts other than 742?
So lacrosse is a unique one because that is also with Cathedral. And then, so there's 3 teams, but it's still a crush, and that'd be the same with gymnastics. So they are crush, but Cathedral's involved with those. And then we do have Tech Boys Swimming is another unique one that has a cooperative with Tech, Cathedral, Rocori, Becker, and Big Lake. And that's kind of a one-off.
yeah, and our girls swimming last Cathedral and St. John's Prep. And I would like to just kind of note that a lot of those cooperatives with other schools have been them coming to us. We're seeking to join, and that's where we're looking to join within our district.
What are we noticing regarding participation once we are co-oping, moving to crush? What's happening with participation in those particular programs especially? I would be interested.
I mean, I think our crush co-ops have been very supportive, and it like everything, there's a little bit of a growing phase in how we can take both sides of towns and our traditions and all these things that we've done within our separate programs and merge it and make it one. So there, usually there's a little fluctuation in the first couple of years, but as if you would look at kind of our crush co-ops that we formed 4 years ago, our baseball, our softball, those numbers are thriving. They're doing very well, and we're back to melding these programs that are, they're one, and they sometimes forget they're coming from both spots of town.
St. Cloud.
St. Cloud,
Okay.
yep.
Is our goal long-term to return to each school supporting individual programs for kids when the participation numbers are such?
We evaluate every sport, so the crush teams and the non-crush teams based on numbers to see what the trend looks like, both ways, to go back to having those their own individual at the schools, or to potentially look at having 2. So Carl and I know Eric are very much looking at those trends, and that's something that we do every 2 years because of the looking at this. So as our recommendation for at this moment in this 2-year cycle would be, this is the only one we'd see, it would be adding the co-op.
And my last question would be then, when you go through that process, how is this communicated to parents and athletes?
Yeah, we work through that process, and we discuss it as an activities group and as a leadership group. And then we really look for the help and the direction of our district administrators to help promote that. Both Eric Ruska and myself held a family informational meeting about a week ago. We invited families to come in and express their concerns, express their questions to us, and we field those, try to answer those questions the best we can, and then we're able to bring some of those things back to our district leadership team and Assistant Superintendent Harris and Dr. Putnam, and kind of discuss some of those options and see where we ended up. But we also sent messaging to all families and notified them that we would be seeking board approval, and that the opportunity to discuss those were last Wednesday.
I'll just add it was 14 specific crush teams currently right now since 2021. Adaptive sports, girls and boys, Notre track ski, dance, girls hockey, softball, girls, boys golf, boys lacrosse, boys and girls tennis, girls basketball, gymnastics, boys hockey, wrestling, baseball, lacrosse, and now crush. I think we heard it specifically from our arts folks. Find an interest of what you like and staying with it. kids have a lot of options right now. And so when we looked at soccer specifically, it can be an expensive sport. And when you take away the barrier of the money, we talked about it today. If I have to drive across to Monticello, those games travel, how do I network with families? We looked at CYMSA specifically on how their growth was coming along, and it was stagnant. Friendships matter in middle school when we heard it earlier, right? If me and Natalie are gonna go out and we're friends, and I've been playing competitive soccer since I was 5, and I know if I go play at the school team and they're just basically beginning, I might not want to come out and play because that's not really fun for me. Only if I come out because, and we've heard this from kids, I'm going to do it with Natalie. She's my friend, right? And so it's finding ways to grab kids and engage them and keep them there for the long haul. When we talk to our younger players specifically that have gone up, that's a huge adjustment. Me and the superintendent talked about not just the adjustment of your body, the social aspect of teenage students that are 16, now you're with 12-year-olds. How's that look, right? Those things also show up, and we kind of look through the gamut of how that looks, and then what do we need to do in solution-wise to try to fix it? And so our activities directors, Principal Scalaru, has sat down and, when we talk about it, folks don't want to come together, right? Your rivalry to your school and all of it. But when we looked at it, this is all our organization, and we have to come together as 742. I heard some things that, I sat in the seat of a principal at South and the principal at Tech High School. And, some of the things of why don't we co-op with other districts? Why don't we co-op with our folks first, right? This is where we learn together. I think Principal Scalaru hit it. You go to Apollo, and they're out visibly in the hallways, talking to the students. You heard it, the coaches are also working in the buildings. How well did that create a sense of belonging for kids to show up? I can have you in the hallway telling me I need to get to class and be there on time, but I also can have you running laps when you're doing X, Y, and Z. How's that work? And building character for our students. And so this was a thoughtful piece and process, and I think our folks led a good process around it.
The whole issue of participation, to what extent are factors from outside of the school impacting that? And when I think of that, I think of the early youth organizations where student kids are being drawn into competitive athletics in 3rd grade and earlier, and families have to put forth a lot of money to allow them to participate. And so if they can't participate, is that at the grade school level, they lose that advantage as they're getting older. Is that part of what's driving the reduction in participation once they get to the high school level?
Yeah, I think that has a good part of it. And in our conversations with families, one of our parents brought that up as this is a bigger problem than just at Tech and at Apollo. This is something that as a sport of soccer, right? And clearly our boys are flourishing as we have extreme numbers at both sides of town, but getting our young females out for these activities, and how at the young age do you make that more feasible, right, and more attractive. And we understand with our cultural diversities and different things, there are different barriers for our students, even at that young age. But it's kind of been one of those community things of how do we work with our community partners in the CMYSA, the youth basketballs, youth hockeys, to continue to drive participation in our area. And then hopefully then it continues to flourish into our junior highs and high school. But, it is often that transition piece from they're involved in youth, then they go to the junior high and it's like, well, I kind of want to play, but I don't really want to play. I can just play on the travel, we lose some of that participation, and then trying to get it back out in the high school after a couple of years off is tough to gather. But that is definitely a community problem that we would love as a district or as an activities department, love to work with to navigate how that consistency could be there for our kids.
I think the other piece that needs to be discussed with this is if this co-op is approved by this board, is you looked at numbers and at the junior high. And our acceleration process will still exist. If you're a 7th or an 8th grader and you go through that process and make that varsity team, great for you. You have the skill and talent to be there and meet all those, but it's going to keep our junior high kids competing at their grade level and build those programs up and to feed into that junior varsity and varsity program instead of pulling because of a number to try to fill it a JV. And now your 3 best 8th graders are gone. It's a trickle down effect and it affects those programs just as much.
I have a question and then many comments. Help me understand, to me, out of all of this, the biggest question that I have, or the biggest barrier in this conversation, is actually about the reclassification. So when you say that we have the opportunity to appeal, or when MSHSL comes out and they reclassify and you have the option to appeal, is that per sport or is that across the board?
That would be per sport. So we can look at all of our sports, whether they're crush or not, and whether they're in the right classification that we feel is competitive or good for our students. But there are a lot of factors that go into those classifications and how many schools are in your co-op and all the different numbers on class, right? There's 2 classes of hockey, there's 3 of soccer, there's 4 of basketball. So there's a lot of different factors, but it would be per sport, yes.
So then, let me share. As a career athletics administrator, I've wrestled this coming out last week. I've wrestled with the request because as a former athlete at high school and college level, I have great concern about girls and women's sports participation, and it's also a huge passion of mine. And I think in some of this, we are missing, in just the conversation about numbers, we're missing some important points. First of all, District 742 has a responsibility to provide high quality and equitable opportunities for girls in soccer. The limited number of participants at Apollo or our Feeder North programs makes that difficult, so let's acknowledge that. Secondly, girls benefit from high quality experiences, not just to develop on the field, but because it helps them develop confidence and soft skills. We know that girls are more likely to participate and stay on a team when they feel like they belong, and part of belonging is competitive success. Credit to Tech High School, they have had really good success. They've created an environment where that is possible. Molly Bergstrand likely wouldn't have received or earned the same sort of achievements had we been classified in a different level. And I want to make note that that's critically important because we're losing girls in a lot of cases because they're not seeing the success, or if they're in these smaller programs or larger programs and we don't have a process for that, then not only are they losing the opportunity to play soccer, the reality is most of them aren't going on. They're losing these critical opportunities to develop, learn how to work with teams, so on and so forth. MSHSL rules require reclassification review for co-op programs. The increase in classification to a larger school or to a larger level would be detrimental to our Southside girls and the program that they have built, and that is a huge concern of mine. Not supporting opportunities in our district consistent with past practice would be detrimental to our Northside girls. So I think we have to look at it from both ways. Couple of other comments. Bruce, to your point, the sports world is changing. I mean, I live and breathe this every single day. The college level is an absolute mess, to be honest. I think what we're seeing, sports specialization has not been beneficial. So you see girls who start playing soccer and that's the only thing they play, or they start playing basketball or volleyball and it's the only thing that they play. So the numbers that used to be multifold no longer are in the same sort of way, which is impacting everybody. There's certainly burnout when you're 5 years old and you play every day. We're seeing kids who by the time they're 6th, 7th, 8th grade, 10th grade, sophomores in college who are just saying, I can't do this anymore. It's just not the interest that I have. I think that's, certainly sad. The point about the detriment, so for those students whose families don't have the access or the means to start early, already we've talked about so much tonight about the social or the psychological side of participating when you're in middle school, whether it's in band or whether it's in sports. If already you feel behind and you've not participated, it is really hard to decide that you're going to come out in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade playing against kids who have been involved for really, for 5 or 6 years. And then finally, we do have a cultural perspective in St. Cloud that plays out differently, which to me is critically important in anything we do with MSHSL so that they understand what our numbers are. And the last thing, and I want to make sure we make this point. So let me say this. I'm inclined to support the co-op recommendation with the caveat that the board submit a letter as part of reclassification and work with district officials to best advocate in the appeal. I actually think that the larger numbers, two of my older 2 boys both participated in tech soccer. On the boys' side, they've had great success, and they've had 80, 90, 100 and more students participate or try out at least. So having large numbers is not a detriment to success. Having large numbers, if you're playing against a level of talent that just isn't adequate or consistent with who we are, is the problem. The tech girls can continue to be successful as a combined crush program if we continue to be involved in the right place. But being in a space where they're playing against teams from the metro area who have much higher tryout levels, whose kids are probably spending and have access to higher level travel teams, I don't think is in the best interest of our school district, to be honest. So I am inclined to support it, but with a very strong statement from this district and from the school board saying that we need, for the benefit of girls, because we are seeing decreasing participation, for the benefit of our girls to think about classification very strongly as they make that decision.
Yeah, and that was a huge wrestling point for us too, and a huge focal of this discussion was around that classification, because we know the differences. A lot of us in the first co-op merger, you had to adjust some classifications, and we were put in different spots, but over time, our baseball, again, for a good example, struggled initially in that 4A category and now is coming off a state tournament participant. Our girls softball kind of struggled with some of the numbers and that fluctuation, and now has been back-to-back section finals. Haven't quite got to state, but it's going to take some time. And I want you to know that was a huge focal point of moving this forward and a huge part of what we're looking to do. And that's why this timeline is so important, to give ourselves that opportunity to get in front of the school board and apply for that classification, because all of us sitting in this room agree 2A is where we belong and where we can compete and give all of our students the best opportunity. And that's why the importance of this timeline is where it's at.
And I'll just last comment would simply be, I also want us to be careful not to set the precedent that we're not trying to grow participation. This isn't an easy out. I appreciate that you evaluate every year, because I think that's important. Let's get to a good place, but then across, I just think the experience of, particularly for young girls, and I'll throw out a stat, 95% of women in CEO positions across the country in Fortune 500 companies, 95% come from a sports background. So put that together with where girls learn to have a voice and where they learn to compete, not just in the athletics world, but in the world of business and life. And there's a pretty strong correlation.
Well, thank you. That all good stuff. Just want to throw in a lot of thought. I'm a little biased because I have 3 girls all play soccer, one at North Junior High, and somehow last summer I ended up coaching soccer. For the youth organization, and because my daughter will she's in 7th grade now, will be in 8th grade, and we knew last year or previous school year, numbers were tough, and there's a massive volleyball participation presence over there, right? So there was like competition. But But last year and this year, I made a concerted effort to keep all the kids on the couple of teams I was aware of to, hey, you're gonna play soccer at North this year, right? My daughter, her friends, teammates, they were out handing out flyers in the school. The coaches did a great job at North of bringing in what you mentioned, some people to try a sport in a formal manner for the first time ever. And again, yes, I don't know if any of them will be back. I just wanted to highlight how hard it was to engage and keep a lot of these girls in soccer. We weren't quite as successful as we would have hoped. Again, part of that is a little bit, they chose to play volleyball, and then the others just chose not to play, or they're really involved in theater or something. So it's hard work, especially considering all the effort we saw put in there. So I just wanted to point that out, so it's going to continue to be. But we have a great team. We have good coaches, teachers. They were active, and so something we definitely have to keep working on.
This is not an easy conversation, and we got emails from parents and, on all sides of the subject, and thanks for doing your due diligence and presenting all this information. I don't even pretend to understand classification, but what I think I'm hearing is that we want to be in 2A, that's where we currently are, but what would happen if we didn't act today? What's the fear? Is that we were going to go to something we can't compete in very well, or?
So I think the overall goal and the feedback from everybody involved in this process, including families, was that giving our kids the best opportunity to succeed and compete is at the 2A level where we currently are. If you move up to 3A, like Heather said here, we're going to be competing with the St. Michael's, the Rogers, the Buffaloes that generally have a little bit different of that background and the dynamics to be able to participate in those sports at a maybe higher level or younger age. And so we would, by not completing this in the timeline with the high school league, we would lose our opportunity to appeal into that Class 3A or Class 2A. So if we waited and said, let's give this the spring and recruit and try and get out and whatever, that's fine. But if we ultimately come back to that decision this spring to form the co-op, we would automatically, because of our school populations, move into that Class 3A. So we wouldn't even have the chance to appeal at that time.
The deadlines are very set, so we have about a week to if we choose to do that, and if we choose to wait, then and later came back to it, we're automatically in 3A. That is our chance to appeal, and I think it's also important. This really doesn't change the regular season. We're talking all these things about postseason. Our conference really dictates who we play from August until mid-October, and this is once you get into the playoffs is where the change is, but. Tech came off a great season and a state tournament berth, and that's extremely important. I'm a former coach and incredibly competitive, and I want to see these teams all be successful, and I know that's where we're at. So we want to give the chance. We have won some appeals in the last round. Apollo football won an appeal, Crush girls basketball won an appeal, and they're both down to classification. So it's not impossible, and it does happen. But there's opportunity to go speak in front of a board. And I spoke on behalf of those groups to explain all the things that we talked about. And I think a supportive letter from this board for this and the teams that we choose is extremely important, because we are an incredibly amazing district, but a very unique district, whereas our participation numbers just don't match sometimes the districts of our size for all the variables.
Two other questions. What are the normal numbers? I don't know if there is normal numbers, but if there's the varsity JV team, like what's a usual number in our not our district, but in our, can you tell I'm not a sports person? I played ninth grade basketball, okay? Do you know what I'm asking?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
You can actively roster 22 on a team. So, when you're looking at your program, a healthy program is upper 30s. Okay. The 40 is it's a lot, but because a lot of times your varsity, although you're able to roster that many, some of those kids will also play JV. So they're playing on both teams as kind of the in-between, because you get multiple halves in a game. So, that mid-30s is really comfortable. I know in talking with the coaches, when we were talking about how many kids do we need to field more than just our varsity team, I mean, you got to get to the mid 25 to try to piece together, but you're healthily, if you can get 10 a grade, or fluctuate between that, about 40 is a good number.
But we have 11 on a field at one time, right?
Correct.
So that doesn't work.
Yes. Yeah, I did play soccer actually all the way through high school. I was a goalie, but Soccer Rapids didn't have a soccer team back then. So the thing I noticed, because I know this is a lot about what I'm hearing a lot, is that Tech's and the South Side numbers are larger than the North Side numbers in this. But with the one thing you put up there, it looks like South junior high numbers aren't really that great either. So it's not.
Yeah, correct. I mean, Tech right now at the high school level, comparative is a healthy program, and success helps and drives that, and we understand that. But as you look at those junior high numbers and prolonged supporting, right, the numbers are down on the south side there, and there's other factors to that we tried to explore, but it just doesn't feed consistently throughout the years.
I think we look, where are they going? Where are the students going? They're going to what Zach said. We see a higher number in girls volleyball right now at the middle level. That's where, when we look and we're like, well, if they're not playing where they're going, you have healthy middle level, junior high girls volleyball numbers right now currently.
Thank you.
What do we base the formula on? Is it strictly to get into A or double A? Is it strictly our student enrollment numbers, or does it calculate free? Is it complicated? Does it calculate free and reduced?
There's a lot of factors that go into it, but generally you consider the student population that's submitted to MDE, and they take, the larger school, again, in this case would be Tech, they take their population plus half of Apollo's population to formulate the number. Yes, they do factor in some of that free and reduced, some of the transient student numbers into that as part of their equation, but it doesn't represent necessarily our whole population. But that's where in that appeal process, we really get to highlight those different demographics within our district to get us in front of that board to appeal. And a lot of that process is based on some of those other numbers that we definitely qualify as a district.
Is the opportunity to appeal exist because we had a change? So, or
No, it's
is it standard, it's always open that we can appeal their decision?
any district with over 50% free and reduced lunch can appeal.
Okay. So Heather, you'll write up a letter and we'll sign it? That wasn't funny. I mean, that was funny, but I was straight up serious.
I'll work on it.
Okay, thanks. When do you need the letter?
It'll be a little bit of a process now. If we choose to go forward with the co-op, then they come out with the classification. So we're about 2 months away from that.
Yeah, the classifications are dependent on MDE's timeline, middle February here, and then that appeal process would be early March.
Okay.
Once you, so like in girls basketball where you already have that, do you have to reapply every time?
Yeah, it's a 2-year process, so we got that appeal process last time, so we've been playing in that competitive section now for 2 years. Now everything gets reshuffled. They do take into some consideration how you did in that new classification, but the initial report is strictly based on the student population numbers.
Okay. So this is an action item. The administration is recommending that we approve the new girls soccer co-op with Tech and Apollo as crush. Anybody would like to make that motion?
I think Scott might have said, I'll second.
You'll second. I have a motion by Scott, a second by Bruce. Any further discussion? Natalie?
Can we make it with the caveat that we do that thingamajig that we were saying we would do, write the letter?
Yeah, would that be more impactful than just doing it, do you think?
The reason I want to do it is because I know parents are very concerned about what we're doing, on both sides of the fence. And so I'm just wondering if that would be
Support that idea?
Smart.
So now somebody with some Robert rules, get me out of this mess and say, do we need to pull
Friendly
back? Do we
amendment.
need to amend? And,
Amend the motion, I assume Scott can amend the motion, and then I would.
Yep.
okay. Can you, how about, if you need help, Natalie, could you say, Scott, would you like to amend the motion to blah, 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 blah? And he'd say, yes.
Can you do that?
I would
'Cause
say,
whatever
Scott, would you
said.
like to amend the motion that you recommend adoption of Crush Soccer with the caveat that the board participate with the administration to put together a letter supporting our position related to classification?
I'd be happy to, yes.
Hope Jan got that.
And then, Bruce, you're seconding that then, that amended motion?
Yeah, is that a good, is that a good motion? Is that a caveat to, or should we approve the proposal and then make a motion to add a letter in support of it?
That one makes me a little bit nervous because it's not an action item on our agenda, but I'm not the expert in Robert rules, so.
Assuming that it's okay, I would second that motion, that we would.
All right, Zach, speak.
Well, so, as long, we're still supporting or voting on what the question was asked.
We're
It is
voting
expecting
on
a friendly
approving
amendment.
the,
So there's a
the
semicolon,
proposal,
so,
but also we're voting then that a letter must be written.
correct, so.
Okay, not following, it's getting late. Would you guys like 2 action items or 1?
One.
Okay,
I know it's one, yeah.
okay, so I think we're okay? All right, so we have, Jan, thanks for writing this down here. And then, Scott amended his motion to include Heather's words. Bruce seconded that, and so Bruce, can you call vote?
Scott Andresen,
Yes.
Natalie Copeland,
Yes.
Zach Dorholt,
Yes.
Diana Fenton,
Yes.
Shannon Haas.
Yes.
Bruce Hanchus, yes. Heather Weems.
Yes.
All right, thank you, guys, all the
Thank
work
you.
that went into that.
Time, so just let me know.
Okay. Next up, another action item here. We have the approval of elementary school boundaries being presented tonight by Nikki Hansen, Assistant Superintendent of E through 5 Learning, and Joel Heitkamp, Executive Director of Operations.
Yes, good evening, Chair Hawes, Superintendent Putnam, and members of the board. Tonight, administration recommends the approval of the Clearview boundary adjustment to include the St. Augusta area and the County Road 8 area south of Minnesota Boulevard. On the screen here, you will see Joel shaking his cursor over those 2 new areas that are proposed on the new map. And with that, we will take any questions that you may have.
And for listeners, just to clarify that this was presented at the January 8th, 2025 board meeting. Questions, comments? Looking, it's an action item, Zach?
I just had a quick, because I think, when conversations I had, people might not realize how long it's actually been. So can you remind us the last time we actually changed boundaries in this district for schools was?
We'll look to Gary.
We have to go to the gray hair for that answer?
I believe it was, for elementary, it was 1990 when we ordered the 3 schools, and then probably for the high schools when Apollo was built. Would you agree, Bruce? Was there any?
I believe so. I can't
1969
remember.
were you around?
Well, that would have been, yeah, for the 1970 school year, sure.
So I just wanted to highlight that, 'cause I know people brought this up, and as somebody who went to like 5 different schools without moving, that it was like, oh no, but yeah, it's been a long, long time, so just wanted to bring that up.
My comment would be, again, that this is not the first presentation of this. It has been by the administration. We have significant room issues at some of our schools, and that it's been given a great deal of thought. And with that in mind, I certainly would be supportive of it.
Do you want to make a motion to approve the elementary school boundaries as presented?
I would do that, yes.
And I have a motion by Bruce and a second by Zach. Any further discussion at all? Okay, Bruce, can you call vote?
Heather Weems?
Yes.
Bruce Henches, yes. Shannon Haas?
Yes.
Diana Fenton?
Yep.
Zach Dorholt? Yes. Natalie Copeland?
Yes.
Scott Andresen?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Last action item up tonight, we have approval of the 2025-2026 school calendar presented by Shannon Avison, Assistant Superintendent for E12 Educational Services.
Good evening, Chair Haas, Superintendent Putnam, and members of the board. I'm here to bring forward the school calendar proposal for the 25-26 school year. I want to start with just a little bit of background information, and then we'll look into the schedule proposal. We have about 23 members on our team. It includes building principals from elementary, middle school, and high school representation. We also have members of the teachers union as representative, again, trying to make sure we have elementary, middle school, and high school perspective. The executive director of human resources and operations, so Tracy and Joel, participate from their perspective. Assistant superintendents, all three of us participate. Athletic directors as well, and equity department representation as well. We had 3 meetings that were held this year. We began in October. Second meeting in November, and then just recently here in January. Some other things for team considerations. We do have to build the schedule around 169 student days. We also, through the contract with Teachers Union, we have 4 professional development days total for the year and 2 total workshop days. And those can be in half-day increments, and you'll see this on the calendar that I present in a few minutes. We also have 7 teacher holidays that we build into the schedule. We also had a lot of consideration around Eid and Rosh Hashanah. We also discussed overall schedule consistency and potential impact on students, how various schedules would impact our students. A very lengthy conversation about winter break and versus school going into June, into that first week of June. And as you can imagine, there are people on both sides of that camp. Some would like a longer break over winter break and then go into that first week in June, and others would prefer a shorter winter break that we have had in the past and then not go into June. We also try to balance the trimesters as much as possible so that the days of instruction throughout those trimesters are close, are balanced equally. And then another consideration is alignment with local colleges, SCSU, SJU, and also SCTCC. Multiple considerations around that are obviously our PSEO students attend both SCTCC and SCSU is where our larger numbers are at. We also understand that between family, work, and sibling schedules, with students going and families working at those institutions as well. And then also the student teachers that support our schools. And so those are all considerations that were discussed at length. It's the same schedule. It's just printed twice. It's on the PowerPoint for you twice. The first schedule that we are looking at here is in color coded so that as I go through and talk about the color coding, it's easier to decipher what we're talking about with this schedule. The second, the next slide, I'll quickly go to that. This is what you will see if you vote for it, then this is what we post on our district website, but a little more challenging to call out the specifics of that schedule, which is why you have this beautiful colored version in front of you. One thing I will point out, number one, is gray is student contact days, and so are the turquoise days on this schedule. The turquoise represents the end of our trimesters. So of course, those are additional student contact days. So gray and turquoise are student contact days. Pink is the non-student contact days. You'll notice that there are some that are bolded, and those are the non-student contact days that are the teacher holidays or the paid holidays. Additionally, yellow is our professional development days, and green are the workshop times. And when we say professional development as either district or building led, and it's exactly what you can imagine, professional development for our teachers and for our staff, trainings that we're doing around curriculum or CPI or various trainings that we do. The green portions on workshop time are truly, that's the time that teachers have within their schedule to work in their classrooms, prepare curriculum, do grading, and those pieces. So workshop is highlighted in green there. One thing you'll notice that we do is, or that we're proposing, there is some green workshop time, obviously at the start of the school year, August, and then additionally the day before the first, or the day after the trimester one end. And then again, at the very end of the year, after the last day of school on June 1st, that would be that day that teachers come back. That's what we have done traditionally over the last couple of years. So the proposal, and as I mentioned, you will notice a lot of conversation did go into that December schedule in thinking about the 22nd and the 23rd. And again, when we looked at other options, we had multiple options on the table. The team really felt strongly that this was the best schedule for students and the best schedule for our students around trimester ends. And so this is the one that we are bringing forward. I will point out that unfortunately our spring breaks no longer align beautifully with SCTCC and SCSU. I actually found that out the hard way because, we were planning a vacation and didn't know that my daughter, who is PSEO student at SCTCC, is not on the same break as us this year, and that's my son at SCSU. So learning the hard way, but we are aligned with this calendar proposal. We would be aligned with SCSU, which is important. We have a lot of our students who do attend PSEO there, and additionally partnerships with them and student teaching. SCTCC is the following week, the 9th through the 13th, and St. John St. Ben's is the 16th through the 20th next year. So that's where we were at with that piece. We go. So that is that version of the schedule, and then again, this is the draft that we are people are used to seeing once it is posted on our district website. The one thing that you'll notice different on this particular schedule is the 2nd and the 3rd of June. Those are weather makeup days if needed. So that's why you see a little bit going there into that schedule, and which is why I didn't show this one first, because it's a little harder to see that. All right. Any questions?
Hey, anybody have any questions? I'm looking for a motion to approve the 2025-2026 school calendar as presented.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Natalie, second by Scott. Any further discussion? Any discussion, actually? No further discussion. That was very, you covered everything, so thank you. You didn't have to leave anything out that we were wondering about. Bruce, can you call vote?
Scott Andresen,
Yes.
Natalie Copeland,
Yes.
Zach Dorholt, Diana Fenton,
Yes.
Shannon Haas,
Yes.
Bruce Henches, yes, Heather Weems.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Moving on to reports. First up, we have the superintendent's report by Dr. Lori Putnam, our superintendent of the year.
Thank you, Chair Haas. Good evening, Chair Haas, Board of Education, our few community audience members who have really gutted it out with us through this long meeting. Thank you for staying, and to our community listening from home. This evening, I am going to be providing a a response to some current concerns that exist in our school community and in our communities at large. The reason that we're talking about this evening is because we in this district are rooted in a mission that that promises a safe and caring climate and culture for all students, staff, and families. And this board has reaffirmed that the mission statement every 2 years for probably a decade. And so wanting to, as I get concerns from students, from families, from principals, from you, wanting to be very transparent and clear about where our district stands in terms of living out that mission. So in this time of heightened anxiety and worry from and for our immigrant community, I want to assure our school community that St. Cloud Area School District is committed to the physical safety and emotional well-being of all students within its control, and is committed to ensuring that all schools and district facilities are welcoming and safe places for students and their families. I want to assure this community that pursuant to federal law, all students of this district will continue to have access to the learning and other educational services available at their schools, including rigorous courses, extracurricular activities and athletics, and support services, regardless of the student's or family's immigration status. I further want to assure our community that we will act in accordance with School Board Policy 519, interviews of students by outside agencies, and School Board Policy 903, visitors to school districts' buildings and sites, to ensure that we protect our schools and our students to the fullest extent possible under the law from any disruption of their educational programs and from any threat to the safety of our students. To that end, I will issue a memorandum to all district leaders, reminding them of these important policies and providing guidance for responding to any presence of immigration officials on district property. This guidance includes directing any immigration and custom enforcement agents that may appear at our schools to my office for full review of the purpose and authority for their visit, consistent with school board policy. Further, unless complied by a valid court order or by law, I want to assure you that we will not disclose private student information or allow immigration officials to have access to students. Where we are legally required to provide information or access based on a court order or other valid legal authority, we will take all legal steps available to provide proper notice to their parents consistent with FERPA, the Minnesota Government Data Practices Act, and/or other legal requirements before complying. We want our students, families, and staff to know that we care deeply about your well-being and will act within our legal authority to ensure that our schools are safe and welcoming places during this difficult time. I will meet with district and school leaders and family advocates tomorrow to review these protocols and answer any questions in collaboration with Executive Director Bowe. This statement will also be shared with all staff and families tomorrow. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Superintendent Putnam, thank you for addressing this issue directly. I've appreciated this board and District 742 because we have a history of respecting public schools as nonpartisan. Our mission is to create a safe environment in which students have the best opportunity to learn. The statement and reference to board policy, state and federal law makes clear for our public that continued commitment and clarifies the role of our school personnel and the district's grounding in our mission. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Here we have the Board of Education Standing Committee reports. I believe that we have 2 reports. We have Achievement, Integration, and Equity Chair Diana Fenton.
Thank you, Chair Haas and Superintendent Putnam. This morning, the Achievement, Integration, and Equity Committee met. Dr. Harris had a great presentation on the activity opportunities that were offered in the secondary schools this fall, and continue to support the work with the partnership with the Minnesota State High School League with the focus on safety, expectations, and belongings. Second, Donna Roper shared information that we were discussing at our December retreat on MCA testing, and we will have more discussion on that in February. And lastly, we set the remainder of the calendar meetings for the 2025 school year.
Thank you. And then we have Board Finance and Audit Committee Chair Heather Weems.
The Board Finance Committee met this afternoon. Finance Chair Weems reported she had talked to Al Dahlgren and invited him to serve as the Finance Committee community representative. He accepted that position and will join us at our next regular meeting. Executive Director Scalarud informed the committee that our 3-year audit contract expired. She recommends putting the contract out for RFP and extending the terms to a 5-year contract in an effort to increase bid responses given the extensive time demand to create the response, and the committee members supported the 5-year duration.
Thank you. And then Legislative Committee Chair Bruce Henches.
Yes, thank you, Board Chair. The Legislative Committee did not meet. However, as chair, I have attended several meetings recently that have dealt with the legislature and platforms of AMSD and the Minnesota School Boards Association. And I passed out a brief summary of what was covered at AMSD because I think that it is important for us to be up to date and aware of these things. And the AMSD legislative preview was a couple of Fridays ago. Superintendent Putnam was there. I had invited all of our legislators also to attend, and fortunately one of them could. It was Senator Eric Putnam was there with us also, but there were 170 board members and school administrators in attendance and 35 legislators from across the state, and also Commissioner Willie Jett was there and presented. The superintendents from St. Anthony, New Brighton, and Anoka and Shakopee all spoke of the funding crisis that their district is facing. And as they did it, they reviewed their current status as a school district, and I have to say that I noted that none had the demographic challenges that District 742 is facing, and dealing with and doing so with a balanced budget, as has been pointed out before. At the meeting, legislators were asked to form a panel and come up and answer questions from the AMSD platform. And those legislators were Senator Michael Crean from Blaine, Senator Mary Kunish from New Brighton, Representative Cheryl Youakim from Hopkins, and Representative Ron Kresha from Little Falls. Interestingly, Ron Kresha is current chair of the House Education Finance Committee, a very important committee since this is a budget year. And the Democrats aren't there yet, and so it is only he playing that role. Just a few things I put. I'm not going to go over all of the quotes that I took of theirs while they were presenting, but just at the bottom, a summary. Their indication was that they are open particularly to mandate reduction and non-cost items like fund transfers. Maybe local option revenue, which this district, I think right now, has $724 in local option revenue. But that they indicated that they're open to discussing that. They are concerned about MCA, but they do not have an answer for it. One representative spoke of using the ACT score, or the ACT test, and another one responded that she was open to replacing the MCA, but she's not so sure about the ACT. So there's a lot of work to do there. Compensatory funding is important to all, and in fact, a task force was discussed and suggested, and the governor has proposed holding all districts safe from any cuts to compensatory funding this year. We'll have to see. That may become a very key issue for us as we review our platform. The special education cost subsidy is important. They all said that, but there are no additional funds available for this term. And that was pretty much a consensus for the special education cost subsidy, other than the commitment to continue to increase the payback of that to 60%. They all agreed that something needs to be done about absenteeism. But again, there were no strong ideas, although again, a task force probably. And that finally, it's going to be difficult finding common ground or additional funding for education. It's going to be a very challenging legislative session. Our legislative committee will have its first meeting at the end of February, February 21st, and we will be staying in contact with our legislators and updating our legislative platform as we need to communicate clearly to legislators, our legislators, what's most important to District 742. So.
Thank you. Last up tonight, we have future agenda items. The February 5th, 2025 board meeting topics will include You're Not Alone presentation, middle level courses update, schools update, and some policy readings. At this time, does any board member wish to suggest a future agenda item? Okay, that was everything on our agenda. Looking for a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting. Motion by Natalie, second by Scott. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Meeting is adjourned at 9:19 p.m. Have a good night. Thanks for watching.
Lori, I'll see you at 11:15 tomorrow, right? Is that when? Yes, indeed.